My God. Did you hear about the...
No, but did you see that?
I'm not saying anything about the...
Oh, yo, let's just call it what it is. Fuckery.
Oh, my God. She said it.
Ain't no motherfucker in this world can do it like me. Open up your eyes and insert a little rising. You don't have to love me, you don't have to like me. Got enough love in myself, in my psyche. You should have the same in your brain nightly. If you wanna taste, bitch, you can fucking try me. If you wanna hate, bitch, you know where to find me. And if you're going atheist, you can fucking bite me. I'll be cruising in my lane fast, call it high speed. I've been working hard, yeah, I've been working nightly. If you think you'll win, ha, not fucking likely. I be taking shots, yeah, cold-blooded, icy. Watching numbers grow is what I call sightseeing. In the front row, run it up when they hype me. The following grows, they know how to ignite me. Call me CEO, I've been running shit right, see.
No, but did you see that?
I'm playing games, I create my own lane, making pleasure out of pain, turning losses into gains. I'm the boss, I'm making change. I've been rocking this exchange, fuck it. Popping off and risking things, gonna make a fucking name. I just wanna be famous, but I don't want that cheap fame. No, I'm not that vain, I just wanna be greatness.
Oh, yo, let's just call it what it is. Fuckery.
I just wanna be greatness. Ain't no motherfucker in this world can do it like me. Open up your eyes and insert a little rising. You don't have to love me, you don't have to like me. Got enough love in myself, in my psyche. You should have the same in your brain nightly. If you wanna taste, bitch, you can fucking try me. If you wanna hate, bitch, you know where to find me. And if you're going atheist, you can fucking bite me. Okay, I'm going off every chance I get. I don't really take a loss, well, I'll admit. That's why I'll make it to the top, yeah, I commit. And no, I'm never getting lost, I get after it. Investing in my own stock, cause it's faster than any crypto hits go, let me spend. Everything that you see is something I invent, and it's only a percent. I'm gonna take shots, if I miss all, forget it. I'll take a fat loss just to learn all that's in it. I'm taking snapshots, learning how to fall and get it. I'm getting back up, always stand tall, don't sweat it. I never back up, I don't miss a thing or regret it. I'm always learning, you could call me academic. I'm always working, never been apathetic. That energy is like a poison, needs some antiseptic.
No, but did you see that?
I'm not saying anything about the...
Oh, yo, let's just call it what it is. Fuckery.
Oh my.
Oh my, let's call it what it is, eh? But let's
We are
hope
going
it's
to
not.
talk tonight about the biggest fuckery in our nation.
Well, at least it what happened anyway.
Yeah.
It's nice to see that we are actually having congressional hearings on this finally.
Finally. Yeah, it only took what, 2.5 years?
Only. But you know, welcome everyone in the chat. We promise it's not going to be all crazy and everything like that. It is a political one. It is, and if you're here in America, it's a hot issue. It's going to be, but we're going to be fair and neutral. There'll be commentary. I'm not going to gag quiz at all. I'm going to let them say most.
Only if she does it with a ball gag, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah, stop. Wrong show. Anyway, we both decided that you all may want to talk about it as it's going on, as you're watching it. Because who wants to sit home and yell at the TV all alone? Yeah, not me. Not I. So we thought, Quiz had the great idea. Hey, why don't we share it? Like, let's see how people feel about it. And you know me, I'm not afraid of the conversations. not going to weigh in or judge anyone, one side or the other, whatever you have to say. I just ask you to be respectful in chat to each other, regardless of your opinions. Okay, that's it. And that's easy. You know, you could say whatever you want about the issue. Everybody can. You know, that's the only rules I have. You know, oh, and you know, if you put 69 in the chat, that phone number thing, you know, it's just because. Just cause, you know, it's just the right thing to do. It's just the right thing to do.
8675309.
Yeah, Jenny gets a lot of play. Let me tell you, Jenny gets a lot of play. Well, so how are you tonight, Quiz? We got a little whiles before they start.
I'm really good. Just ready. You know, this thing. I remember this thing happening.
I do too.
Because on this particular day, everybody gets to know the secret now. This is my birthday.
This was your birthday, January 6th?
January 6th is my birthday.
Insurrection Day is your birthday?
Insurrection Day is now my birthday. Yeah. Isn't it wonderful?
Okay.
So it happens on January 6th, you know, while my partner and I are trying to celebrate my birthday. And of course, we've left the TV on because who doesn't, right? I mean, we were
right. We always do. I do
just
too.
eating. You know, I just had made lunch and we were eating, and then the news came over, and it was like both of us just went straight to the TV, started watching, and we turned to PBS because we don't want to hear a whole bunch of, you know, bias reporting and all that. You know, I remember that my partner got up at one point and came back and handed me 2 clonazepams. Said, take these.
Oh,
you're gonna need them today.
Okay, good. All right. So, personal question: you yell at the TV, don't you? Like I do. Like, you know what? Through a couple of elections, like I don't. I'll have to tell you, I haven't watched TV like in a year. I have not. I only watch I watch Netflix or something like through my laptop, whatever. Yeah. Except for Dexter, I will admit, when Dexter came back, I was all. But even then, I wouldn't put the big TV on. I was watching it through my laptop with my cable service through my.
I don't even watch cable TV. I just got so tired of it that I just we just stopped it. I mean, because I'm the only one watching it anyway.
Well, that whole thing, like I thought everything was going to be okay, you know, for quite some time, you know, after the election, after everything went on, you know, I figured things were going to settle down again and maybe the country would be less divided, you know, naive there. You know me, rose-colored glasses and all that shit. You know, always dreaming about the world I want to live in instead of the shit mire I'm actually enveloped in. But anyway, I just found myself almost having an aneurysm. I was yelling at the TV too much.
I wasn't
so much time watching everything, and I was just it got to be I tuned out. I totally tuned out and ran to YouTube. And that's why you're all stuck with me now.
I wasn't screaming. I was just sitting there with my fists balled up. I wanted to hit something. I mean, I was so upset. I mean, especially when, you know, the SWAT stormed the 3rd floor where the PBS live person was. And they came in there with their MP5s and ready to shoot people. I mean, I was like, well, I'm not sure at that point if I wouldn't have shot people saying, oh, you're an insurrectionist. Bang, you're dead. But I was mad. I was mad. I mean, not just because it happened on my birthday. Let's make that clear. But, you know, our country is built upon the foundation of democracy. And somebody wanted to overturn that democracy. In a not fair way. I mean, I don't mind, you know, if we don't like the way the system works, then let's, you know, use the way the system is to change the system. But we have things to do that with. I mean, you don't like how the amendments are written, you rewrite it, you vote on it across the nation. If it passes, it passes, and you rewrite the amendment, but you don't just go, oh, well, I don't want him to be president, so let's have an insurrection.
Apparently, I thought our country was getting older and growing through its toddler stages, and I thought we were through adolescence by now, and that we were getting to a point where, yes, we would do it that way. But no, they decided to go all the way back to the beginning and just go, okay, let's just get let's just cause trouble and just overturn everything. Because that works.
King.
Yeah, that works. Let's go back to that. Like, okay. No, and I'd make a joke, but it was serious. Like, it was seriously heartbreak for me to watch such disrespect for our procedures, such disrespect for that building, for the people that were in it. I believe in the right to protest, but when you put other people at risk to do it, I'm like, you know what? I don't think anybody's issues are that important that you should actually disregard other people's life and safety.
The Vietnam War protests were protests.
Mm-hmm.
The Million Man March was a protest.
Mm-hmm.
This was not a protest. You don't violently enter the Capitol building as a protest.
It was like a teenage tantrum, as far as I'm concerned. It was out of control. They had no respect for anybody, the building, the people, anybody's other opinion. I'm all for protest. I'm an American, of course. I mean, we were sullied on that land, right? We were born this way. We can't help it. It's and opinion. I mean, you ever hear me deny anybody an opinion about anything? Seriously,
I'm not going to deny people's opinion, but.
But that way, the way that was done,
yeah.
And then
you had your opinion on November 3rd. You had your opinion on November 3rd.
Exactly.
Everybody got to voice their opinion on November 3rd, and more people voiced their opinion for Joe Biden than they did for Donald Trump.
And we had to put up with that before. Right, when it went the other way.
And I'm
not even gonna weigh in about president this or president that. I'm just gonna say about the procedures and the way that it works. That's the way it is. This sour grape routine is really wearing on me.
I know. I mean, we're gonna see tonight things that haven't been reported before. I'm sure we're going to see some of the text messages that went back and forth that were already reported. So if you haven't watched that or been kept up to date, you should probably keep your eye on that. And it's going to show a clear top-down organization. How this started, why it started. They knew even before the election that he was going to lose it. And they had started before the election to start planning what to do at that point. How to get it to the point where people didn't, our votes, certain people's votes didn't count. And I mean, how un-American are you going to be? When you go and say, we're going to throw out 3 million votes in Wisconsin and 20 million votes in Arizona or whatever. I mean, come on. This is what this is our foundation. We vote. That's how we pick our leaders.
Exactly.
And if you don't like our leaders, well, don't worry. In 4 more years, you can come back and you can vote again.
Yep.
It's not that hard.
I need you all to find me 20,000 more votes. Okay, Max. What are we voting on?
I need 12. I mean, when he goes on record using the White House phone and says, I need you to find 12,000 votes for me. What?
I know.
I'm really shocked that his own lawyer didn't step in there and say, Mr. President, this is a recorded line.
Oh, that's the thing.
Can't erase.
How do we know they didn't? I can't believe that there weren't intelligent people around that were trying to give advice and stuff. I just don't think.
I'm sure there were a lot of intelligent people slapping their foreheads at that time.
Thanks for the growth.
Oh my God.
I hope it was a friendly one. Just little squeeze there. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so this, I mean, he's done himself in as far as I'm concerned.
You're right, student. We didn't. I cried. I was upset, and it's not. And but what I did is then I got active politically and see what I could do. It was a really hard for some of us and not, but you go with what it is. You gotta, I still believed I wasn't one of those that will let the office be disrespected.
Right.
The man, I never was a fan of the man. He's from the East Coast. I know way too much about him, and he's bad. When they say used to say successful businessman, I would nearly choke because I know of all the bankruptcies. I know of all the people he didn't pay. I'm right near Atlantic City, and the whole town like falling apart with anything that he invested in. The charities he debunked. I mean, come on. I mean, this wasn't just scandal. This was, documented. I know about the tax evasion in New York and, just too much I followed. So as a politician, I mean, no politician's completely clean, but I just wasn't a fan of the man. And then he became president, but I never disrespected the office. He gets his shot just like everybody. And I would say I felt about things he was doing and left my personal opinion about him out of it. But talk about how he dismantled all of the economic, not the economic, but the ecology things that Obama had put in. He just dismantled everything.
Accord.
How he dismantled the pandemic plan when he first got in there. Yes, people, we did. Don't be shocked. Don't come for me, but it's true. We had a pandemic plan before the pandemic because it is true. They were warning about it in some of the health circles in NATO and the World Health Organization and all of that.
Well, especially after HIV.
Investigate the January 6th
here we go.
attack.
We're live. We're going to try not to overtalk them too much. Here we go.
Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare the committee.
How is the sound, people?
At any point. Pursuant to House Deposition Authority Regulation 10, the chair announces the committee's approval to release the deposition material presented during tonight's hearing. Thanks to everyone watching tonight for sharing part of your evening to learn the facts and causes of the events leading up to and including the violent attack on January 6, 2021. Our democracy, electoral system, and country. I'm Benny Thompson, chairman of the January 6, 2021 committee. I was born, raised, and still live in Bolton, Mississippi, a town with a population of 521, which is midway between Jackson and Vicksburg, Mississippi, and the Mississippi River. I'm from a part of the country where people justify the actions of slavery, the Ku Klux Klan, and lynching. I'm reminded of that dark history as I hear voices today try and justify the actions of the insurrectionists on January 6th, 2021. Over the next few weeks, hopefully you will get to know the other members, my colleagues up here, and me. We represent a diversity of communities from all over the United States, rural areas and cities, East Coast, West Coast, and the Heartland. All of us have one thing in common. We swore the same oath. That same oath that all members of Congress take upon taking office and afterwards every 2 years if they are reelected. We swore an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The words of the current oath taken by all of us that nearly every United States government employee takes have their roots in the Civil War. Throughout our history, the United States has fought against foreign enemies to preserve our democracy, electoral system, and country. When the United States Capitol was stormed and burned in 1814, foreign enemies were responsible. Afterward, in 1862, when American citizens had taken up arms against this country, Congress adopted a new oath to help make sure no person who had supported the rebellion could hold a position of public trust. Therefore, Congresspersons and United States federal government employees were required for the first time to swear an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That oath was put to test on January 6, 2021. The police officers who held the line that day honored their oath. Many came out of that day blooded and broken. They still bear those wounds, visible and invisible. They did their duty. They repelled the mob and ended the occupation of the Capitol. They defended the Constitution against domestic enemies so that Congress could return, uphold our own oath, and count your votes to ensure the transfer of power, just as we've done for hundreds of years. But unlike in 1814, it was domestic enemies of the Constitution who stormed the Capitol and occupied the Capitol, who sought to thwart the will of the people to stop the transfer of power. And so they did, so at the encouragement of the President of the United States, the President of the United States, trying to stop the transfer of power, a precedent that had stood for 220 years, even as our democracy had faced its most difficult tests. Thinking back again to the Civil War in the summer of 1864, the President of the United States believed we would be doomed to his bid for re-election. He believed his opponent, General George McClellan, would wave the white flag when it came to preserving the Union. But even with that grim fate hanging in the balance, President Lincoln was ready to accept the will of the voters, come what may. He made a quiet pledge. He wrote down the words, "This morning, as for some days past, it seems exceedingly probable that this administration will not be reelected. Then it will be my duty to so cooperate with the president-elect. It will be my duty." Lincoln sealed that memo and asked his cabinet secretaries to sign it sight unseen. He asked them to make the same commitment he did, to accept defeat if indeed defeat was the will of the people, to uphold the rule of law, to do what every president who came before him did, and what every president who followed him would do, until Donald Trump. Donald Trump lost the presidential election in 2020. The American people voted him out of office. It was not because of a rigged system. It was not because of voter fraud. Don't believe me? Hear what his former Attorney General had to say about it. I warn those who watching that this contains strong language.
No, just what I've been through. I had 3 discussions with the president that I can recall. One was on November 23rd, one was on December 1st, and one was on December 14th. And I've been through sort of the give and take of those discussions. And in that context, I made it clear I did not agree with the idea of saying the election was stolen and putting out this stuff, which I told the president was bullshit. And I didn't want to be a part of it. And that's one of the reasons that went into me deciding to leave when I did. I observed, I think it was on December 1st, that, how can you can't live in a world where the incumbent administration stays in power based on its view, unsupported by specific evidence, that there was fraud in the election.
Bill Barr, on Election Day 2020, he was the Attorney General of the United States, the top law enforcement official in the country, telling the president exactly what he thought about claims of a stolen election. Donald Trump had his days in court to challenge the results. He was within his rights to seek those judgments. In the United States, law-abiding citizens have those tools for pursuing justice. He lost in the courts, just as he did at the ballot box. And in this country, that's the end of the line. But for Donald Trump, that was only the beginning of what became a sprawling, multi-step conspiracy aimed at overturning the presidential election, aimed at throwing out the votes of millions of Americans, your votes, your voice in our democracy, and replacing the will of the American people with his will to remain in power after his term ended. Donald Trump was at the center of this conspiracy. And ultimately, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, spurred a mob of domestic enemies of the Constitution to march down the Capitol and subvert American democracy. Any legal jargon you hear about seditious conspiracy, obstruction of an official proceeding, conspiracy to defraud the United States boils down to this. January 6th was the culmination of an attempted coup, a brazen attempt, as one rioter put it shortly after January 6th, to overthrow the government. The violence was no accident. It represented Trump's last stand, most desperate chance to halt the transfer of power. Now, you may hear those words and think, this is just another political attack on Donald Trump by people who don't like him. That's not the case. My colleagues and I all wanted an outside independent commission to investigate January 6th, similar to what we had after 9/11. But after first agreeing to the idea, Donald Trump's allies in Congress put a stop to it. Apparently, they don't want January 6th investigated at all. And in the last 17 months, many of those same people have tried to whitewash what happened on January 6th, to rewrite history, call it a tourist visit, label it legitimate political discourse. Donald Trump and his followers have adopted the words of the songwriter, "Do you believe me or your lying eyes?" We can't sweep what happened under the rug. The American people deserve answers. So I come before you this evening, not as a Democrat, but as an American who swore an oath to defend the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't protect just Democrats or just Republicans. It protects all of us, we the people. And this scheme was an attempt to undermine the will of the people. So tonight, and over the next few weeks, we're going to remind you of the reality of what happened that day. But our work must do much more than just look backwards. Because of our democracy remains in danger, the conspiracy to thwart the will of the people is not over. There are those in this audience who thirst for power but have no love or respect for what makes America great: devotion to the Constitution, allegiance to the rule of law, our shared journey to build a more perfect union. January 6th and the lies that led to insurrection have put 2.5 centuries of constitutional democracy at risk. The world is watching what we do here. America has long been expected to be a shining city on the hill, a beacon of hope and freedom, a model for others when we are at our best. How can we play that role when our house is in such disorder? We must confront the truth with candor, resolve, and determination. We need to show that we are worthy of the gifts that are the birthright of every American. That begins here, and it begins now, with a true accounting of what happened and what led to the attack on our Constitution and our democracy. In this moment, when the dangers of our Constitution and our democracy loom large, nothing could be more important. Working alongside the public servants on this dais has been one of the greatest honors of my time in Congress. It's been a particular privilege to count as a partner in this effort and to count as a friend the gentlewoman from Wyoming, Ms. Cheney. She's a patriot, a public servant of profound courage, of devotion to her oath and the Constitution. It's my pleasure to recognize Ms. Cheney for her opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And let me echo those words about the importance of bipartisanship and what a tremendous honor it is to work on this committee. Mr. Chairman, at 6:01 p.m. on January 6th, after he spent hours watching a violent mob besiege, attack, and invade our Capitol, Donald Trump tweeted, but he did not condemn the attack. Instead, he justified it. "These are the things and events that happen," he said, "when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who've been badly and unfairly treated for so long." As you will see in the hearings to come, President Trump believed his supporters at the Capitol, and I quote, "We're doing what they should be doing." This is what he told his staff as they pleaded with him to call off the mob, to instruct his supporters to leave. Over a series of hearings in the coming weeks, you will hear testimony, live and on video, from more than half a dozen former White House staff in the Trump administration, all of whom were in the West Wing of the White House on January 6th. You will hear testimony that, quote, "The president did not really want to put anything out calling off the riot or asking his supporters to leave." You will hear that President Trump was yelling and, quote, "really angry" at advisors who told him he needed to be doing something more. And aware of the rioters' chance to hang Mike Pence, the president responded with this sentiment, quote, "Maybe our supporters have the right idea. Mike Pence," quote, "deserves it." You will hear evidence that President Trump refused for hours to do what his staff, his family, and many of his other advisors begged him to do: immediately instruct his supporters to stand down and evacuate the Capitol. Tonight, you will see never-before-seen footage of the brutal attack on our Capitol, an attack that unfolded while a few blocks away, President Trump sat watching television in the dining room next to the Oval Office. You will hear audio from the brave police officers battling for their lives and ours, fighting to defend our democracy against a violent mob Donald Trump refused to call off. Tonight and in the weeks to come, you will see evidence of what motivated this violence, including directly from those who participated in this attack. You will see video of them explaining what caused them to do it. You will see their posts on social media. We will show you what they have said in federal court. On this point, there is no room for debate. Those who invaded our Capitol and battled law enforcement for hours were motivated by what President Trump had told them, that the election was stolen and that he was the rightful president. President Trump summoned the mob, assembled the mob, and lit the flame of this attack. You will also hear about plots to commit seditious conspiracy on January 6th, a crime defined in our laws as conspiring to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force the government of the United States, or to oppose by force the authority thereof. Multiple members of two groups, the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, have been charged with this crime for their involvement in the events leading up to and on January 6th. Some have pled guilty. The attack on our Capitol was not a spontaneous riot. Intelligence available before January 6th identified plans to, quote, invade the Capitol, occupy the Capitol, and take other steps to halt Congress's count of electoral votes that day. In our hearings to come, we will identify elements of those plans, and we will show specifically how a group of Proud Boys led a mob into the Capitol building on January 6th. Tonight, I'm going to describe for you some of what our committee has learned and highlight initial findings you will see this month in our hearings. As you hear this, all Americans should keep in mind this fact. On the morning of January 6th, President Donald Trump's intention was to remain President of the United States, despite the lawful outcome of the 2020 election and in violation of his constitutional obligation to relinquish power. Over multiple months, Donald Trump oversaw and coordinated a sophisticated 7-part plan to overturn the presidential election and prevent the transfer of presidential power. In our hearings, you will see evidence of each element of this plan. In our second hearing, you will see that Donald Trump and his advisors knew that he had in fact lost the election. But despite this, President Trump engaged in a massive effort to spread false and fraudulent information to convince huge portions of the US population that fraud had stolen the election from him. This was not true. Jason Miller was a senior Trump campaign spokesman. In this clip, Miller describes a call between the Trump campaign's internal data expert and President Trump a few days after the 2020 election.
I was in the Oval Office, and at some point in the conversation, Matt Oskowski, who is the lead data person, was brought on, and I remember he delivered to the president pretty blunt terms that he was going to lose.
And that was based, Mr. Miller, on Matt and the data team's assessment of the sort of county by county, state by state results as reported?
Correct.
Alex Cannon was one of President Trump's campaign lawyers. He previously worked for the Trump Organization. One of his responsibilities was to assess allegations of election fraud in November 2020. Here is one sample of his testimony discussing what he told White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows.
I remember a call with Mr. Meadows, where Mr. Meadows was asking me what I was finding and if I was finding anything. And I remember sharing with him that we weren't finding anything that would be sufficient to change the results in any of the key states.
When was that conversation?
Probably in November, mid to late November. I think it was before my child was born.
And what was Mr. Meadows' reaction to that information?
I believe the words he used were, "So there's no there there."
There's no there. The Trump campaign's general counsel, Matt Morgan, gave similar testimony. He explained that all of the fraud allegations and the campaign's other election arguments taken together and viewed in the best possible light for President Trump could still not change the outcome of the election. President Trump's Attorney General Bill Barr also told Donald Trump his election claims were wrong.
Repeatedly told the president in no uncertain terms that I did not see evidence of fraud and that would have affected the outcome of the election. And frankly, a year and a half later, I haven't seen anything to change my mind on that.
Attorney General Barr also told President Trump that his allegations about Dominion voting machines were groundless.
I saw absolutely zero basis for the allegations, but they were made in such a sensational way that they obviously were influencing a lot of people, members of the public, that there was this systemic corruption in the system and that their votes didn't count and that these machines controlled by somebody else were actually determining it, which was complete nonsense. And it was being laid out there. And I told them that it was crazy stuff and they were wasting their time on that. And it was doing a grave disservice to the country.
But President Trump persisted, repeating the false Dominion allegations in public at least a dozen more times, even after his attorney general told him they were, quote, complete nonsense. And after Barr's resignation on December 23rd, the acting attorney general who replaced him, Jeff Rosen, and the acting deputy, Richard Donahue, told President Trump over and over again that the evidence did not support allegations he was making in public. Many of President Trump's White House staff also recognized that the evidence did not support the claims President Trump was making. This is the president's daughter commenting on Bill Barr's statement that the department found no fraud sufficient to overturn the election.
How did that affect your perspective about the election when Attorney General Barr made that statement?
It affected my perspective. I respect Attorney General Barr. So I accepted what he was saying.
As you will hear on Monday, the president had every right to litigate his campaign claims, but he ultimately lost more than 60 cases in state and federal courts. The president's claims in the election cases were so frivolous and unsupported that the president's lead lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, not only lost the lawsuits, his license to practice law was suspended. Here's what the court said of Mr. Giuliani. Giuliani communicated demonstrably false and misleading statements to courts, lawmakers, and the public at large in his capacity as lawyer for former President Donald J. Trump and the Trump campaign in connection with Trump's failed effort at re-election in 2020. As you will see in great detail in our hearings, President Trump ignored the rulings of our nation's courts. He ignored his own campaign leadership, his White House staff, many Republican state officials. He ignored the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security. President Trump invested millions of dollars of campaign funds purposely spreading false information, running ads he knew were false, and convincing millions of Americans that the election was corrupt and that he was the true president. As you will see, this misinformation campaign provoked the violence on January 6th. In our third hearing, you will see that President Trump corruptly planned to replace the Attorney General of the United States so the U.S. Justice Department would spread his false stolen election claims. In the days before January 6th, President Trump told his top Justice Department officials, quote, "Just say the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman." Senior Justice Department officials, men he had appointed, told him they could not do that because it was not true. So President Trump decided to replace them. He offered Jeff Clark, an environmental lawyer at the Justice Department, the job of acting Attorney General. President Trump wanted Mr. Clark to take a number of steps, including sending this letter to Georgia and 5 other states, saying the U.S. Department of Justice had, quote, identified significant concerns that may have impacted the outcome of the election. This letter is a lie. The Department of Justice had, in fact, repeatedly told President Trump exactly the opposite, that they had investigated his stolen election allegations and found no credible fraud that could impact the outcome of the election. This letter and others like it would have urged multiple states to withdraw their official and lawful electoral votes for Biden. Acting Deputy Attorney General Richard Donahue described Jeff Clark's letter this way, quote, "This would be a grave step for the department to take and could have tremendous constitutional, political, and social ramifications for this country." The committee agrees with Mr. Donahue's assessment. Had Clark assumed the role of Attorney General in the days before January 6th and issued these letters, the ramifications could indeed have been grave. Mr. Donahue also said this about Clark's plan.
And I recall toward the end saying, what you're proposing is nothing less than the United States Justice Department meddling in the outcome of a presidential election.
In our hearings, you will hear firsthand how the senior leadership of the Department of Justice threatened to resign, how the White House counsel threatened to resign, and how they confronted Donald Trump and Jeff Clark in the Oval Office. The men involved, including Acting Attorney General Jeff Rosen and Acting Deputy Attorney General Richard Donahue, were appointed by President Trump. These men honored their oaths of office, they did their duty, and you will hear from them in our hearings. By contrast, Jeff Clark has invoked his Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination and refused to testify. Representative Scott Perry, who is also involved in trying to get Clark appointed as Attorney General, has refused to testify here. As you will see, Representative Perry contacted the White House in the weeks after January 6th to seek a presidential pardon. Multiple other Republican congressmen also sought presidential pardons for their roles in attempting to overturn the 2020 election. In our fourth hearing, we will focus on President Trump's efforts to pressure Vice President Mike Pence to refuse to count electoral votes on January 6th. Vice President Pence has spoken publicly about this.
President Trump is wrong. I had no right to overturn the election. The presidency belongs to the American people and the American people alone. And frankly, there is no idea more un-American than the notion that any one person could choose the American president.
What President Trump demanded that Mike Pence do wasn't just wrong, it was illegal and it was unconstitutional. You will hear this in great detail from the Vice President's former general counsel. Witnesses in these hearings will explain how the former Vice President and his staff informed President Trump over and over again that what he was pressuring Mike Pence to do was illegal. As you will hear, President Trump engaged in a relentless effort to pressure Pence, both in private and in public. You will see the evidence of that pressure from multiple witnesses, live and on video. Vice President Pence demonstrated his loyalty to Donald Trump consistently over 4 years, but he knew that he had a higher duty to the United States Constitution. This is testimony from the Vice President's Chief of Staff.
So I think the Vice President was proud of his 4 years of service, and he felt like much had been accomplished in those 4 years. And I think he was proud to have stood beside the President for all that had been done. But I think he ultimately knew that his fidelity to the Constitution was his first and foremost oath. And that's what he articulated publicly, and I think that that's what he felt.
His fidelity to the Constitution was more important than his fidelity to President Trump and his desire.
The oath he took. Yep.
Yes.
You'll also hear about a lawyer named John Eastman. Mr. Eastman was deeply involved in President Trump's plans. You'll hear from former Fourth Circuit federal judge Michael Ludig, a highly respected leading conservative judge. John Eastman clerked for Judge Ludig. Judge Ludig provided counsel to the Vice President's team in the days before January 6th. The judge will explain how Eastman, quote, was wrong at every turn. And you will see the email exchanges between Eastman and the Vice President's counsel as the violent attack on Congress was underway. Mr. Jacob said this to Mr. Eastman: "Thanks to your bullshit, we are under siege." You will also see evidence that John Eastman did not actually believe the legal position he was taking. In fact, a month before the 2020 election, Eastman took exactly the opposite view on the same legal issues. In the course of the Select Committee's work to obtain information from Mr. Eastman, we have had occasion to present evidence to a federal judge. The judge evaluated the facts, and he reached the conclusion that President Trump's efforts to pressure Vice President Pence to act illegally by refusing to count electoral votes likely violated 2 federal criminal statutes. And the judge also said this: if Dr. Eastman and President Trump's plan had worked, it would have permanently ended the peaceful transition of power, undermining American democracy and the Constitution. If the country does not commit to investigating and pursuing accountability for those responsible, the court fears January 6th will repeat itself. Every American should read what this federal judge has written. The same judge, Judge Carter, issued another decision on Tuesday night, just this week, indicating that John Eastman and other Trump lawyers knew that their legal arguments had no real chance of success in court, but they relied on those arguments anyway to try to, quote, overturn a Democratic election. And you will hear that while Congress was under attack on January 6th and the hours following the violence, the Trump legal team in the Willard Hotel War Room continued to work to halt the count of electoral votes. In our fifth hearing, you will see evidence that President Trump corruptly pressured state legislators and election officials to change election results. You will hear additional details about President Trump's call to Georgia officials, urging them to, quote, find 11,780 votes, votes that did not exist, and his efforts to get states to rescind certified electoral slates without factual basis and contrary to law. You will hear new details about the Trump campaign and other Trump associates' efforts to instruct Republican officials in multiple states to create intentionally false electoral slates and transmit those slates to Congress, to the Vice President, and the National Archives, falsely certifying that Trump won states he actually lost. In our final two June hearings, you will hear how President Trump summoned a violent mob and directed them illegally to march on the United States Capitol. While the violence was underway, President Trump failed to take immediate action to stop the violence and instruct his supporters to leave the Capitol. As we present these initial findings, keep 2 points in mind. First, our investigation is still ongoing, so what we make public here will not be the complete set of information we will ultimately disclose. And second, the Department of Justice is currently working with cooperating witnesses and has disclosed to date only some of the information it has identified from encrypted communications and other sources. On December 18th, 2020, a group including General Michael Flynn, Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, and others visited the White House. They stayed late into the evening. We know that the group discussed a number of dramatic steps, including having the military seize voting machines and potentially rerun elections. You will also hear that President Trump met with that group alone for a period of time before White House lawyers and other staff discovered the group was there and rushed to intervene. A little more than an hour after Ms. Powell, Mr. Giuliani, General Flynn, and the others finally left the White House, President Trump sent the tweet on the screen now, telling people to come to Washington on January 6th. Be there, he instructed them. Will be wild. As you will see, this was a pivotal moment. This tweet initiated a chain of events. The tweet led to the planning for what occurred on January 6th, including by the Proud Boys, who ultimately led the invasion of the Capitol and the violence on that day. The indictment of a group of Proud Boys alleges that they planned, quote, to oppose by force the authority of the government of the United States. And according to the Department of Justice, on January 6, 2021, the defendants directed, mobilized, and led members of the crowd onto the Capitol grounds and into the Capitol, leading to the dismantling of metal barricades, the destruction of property, the breaching of the Capitol building, and the assaults on law enforcement. Although certain former Trump officials have argued that they did not anticipate violence on January 6th, the evidence suggests otherwise. As you will see in our hearings, the White House was receiving specific reports in the days leading up to January 6th, including during President Trump's Ellipse rally, indicating that elements in the crowd were preparing for violence at the Capitol. And on the evening of January 5th, the president's close advisor, Steve Bannon, said this on his podcast.
All hell is going to break loose tomorrow. Just understand this. All hell is going to break loose tomorrow.
As part of our investigation, we will present information about what the White House and other intelligence agencies knew, and why the Capitol was not better prepared. But we will not lose sight of the fact that the Capitol Police did not cause the crowd to attack. And we will not blame the violence that day, violence provoked by Donald Trump, on the officers who bravely defended all of us. In our final hearing, you will hear a moment-by-moment account of the hours-long attack from more than half a dozen White House staff, both live in the hearing room and via videotape testimony. There's no doubt that President Trump was well aware of the violence as it developed. White House staff urged President Trump to intervene and call off the mob. Here is a document written while the attack was underway by a member of the White House staff advising what the president needed to say. Quote, anyone who entered the Capitol without proper authority should leave immediately. This is exactly what his supporters on Capitol Hill and nationwide were urging the president to do. He would not. You will hear that leaders on Capitol Hill begged the president for help, including Republican leader McCarthy, who was, quote, scared, and called multiple members of President Trump's family after he could not persuade the president himself. Not only did President Trump refuse to tell the mob to leave the Capitol, he placed no call to any element of the United States government to instruct that the Capitol be defended. He did not call his Secretary of Defense on January 6th. He did not talk to his Attorney General. He did not talk to the Department of Homeland Security. President Trump gave no order to deploy the National Guard that day. He made no effort to work with the Department of Justice to coordinate and deploy law enforcement assets. But Vice President Pence did each of those things. For example, here is what General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, testified to this committee.
There were two or three calls with Vice President Pence. He was very animated, and he issued very explicit, very direct, unambiguous orders. There was no question about that. And he was, and I can get you the exact quotes, I guess, from some of our records somewhere, but he was very animated, very direct, very firm, and to Secretary Miller. Get the military down there, get the Guard down here, put down this situation, etc.
By contrast, here is General Milley's description of his conversation with President Trump's Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, on January 6th.
He said, we have to kill the narrative that the Vice President is making all the decisions. We need to establish the narrative that that the president is still in charge and that things are steady or stable or words that thing. I immediately interpret that as politics, politics, politics. Red flag for me personally, no action, but I remember it distinctly.
And you will hear from witnesses how the day played out inside the White House, how multiple White House staff resigned in disgust, and how President Trump would not ask his supporters to leave the Capitol. It was only after multiple hours of violence that President Trump finally released a video instructing the riotous mob to leave. And as he did so, he said to them, quote, "We love you, and you're very special." You will also hear that in the immediate aftermath of January 6th, members of the president's family, White House staff, and others tried to step in to stabilize the situation, quote, to land the plane before the presidential transition on January 20th. You will hear about members of the Trump cabinet discussing the possibility of invoking the 25th Amendment and replacing the President of the United States. Multiple members of President Trump's own cabinet resigned immediately after January 6th. One member of the cabinet suggested that the remaining cabinet officers needed to take a more active role in running the White House and the administration. But most emblematic of those days is this exchange of texts between Sean Hannity and former President Trump's press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany. Sean Hannity wrote, in part, "Key now, no more crazy people, no more stolen election talk. Yes, impeachment and 25th Amendment are real. Many people will quit. Ms. McEnany responded in part, love that. That's the playbook. The White House staff knew that President Trump was willing to entertain and use conspiracy theories to achieve his ends. They knew the president needed to be cut off from all of those who had encouraged him. They knew that President Donald Trump was too dangerous to be left alone, at least until he left office on January 20th. These are important facts for Congress and the American people to understand fully. When a president fails to take the steps necessary to preserve our union, or worse, causes a constitutional crisis, we're at a moment of maximum danger for our republic. Some in the White House took responsible steps to try to prevent January 6th. Others egged the president on. Others who could have acted refused to do so. In this case, the White House counsel was so concerned about potentially lawless activity that he threatened to resign multiple times. That is exceedingly rare and exceedingly serious. It requires immediate attention, especially when the entire team threatens to resign. However, in the Trump White House, it was not exceedingly rare, and it was not treated seriously. This is a clip of Jared Kushner addressing multiple threats by White House counsel Pat Cipollone and his team of lawyers to resign in the weeks before January 6th.
Jared, are you aware of instances where Pat Cipollone threatened to resign?
I kind of, like I said, my interest at that time was on trying to get as many pardons done. And I know that, he was always, him and the team were always saying, oh, we're going to resign. We're not going to be here if this happens, if that happens. So I kind of took it up to just be whining, to be honest with you.
Whining. There's a reason why people serving in our government take an oath to the Constitution. As our founding fathers recognized, democracy is fragile. People in positions of public trust are duty-bound to defend it, to step forward when action is required. In our country, we don't swear an oath to an individual or a political party. We take our oath to defend the United States Constitution. And that oath must mean something. Tonight, I say this to my Republican colleagues who are defending the indefensible. There will come a day when Donald Trump is gone, but your dishonor will remain. Finally, I ask all of our fellow Americans, as you watch our hearings over the coming weeks, please remember what's at stake. Remember the men and women who have fought and died so that we can live under the rule of law, not the rule of men. I ask you to think of the scene in our Capitol Rotunda on the night of January 6th. There, in a sacred space in our constitutional republic, the place where our presidents lie in state, watched over by statues of Washington and Jefferson, Lincoln and Grant, Eisenhower, Ford, and Reagan. Against every wall that night encircling the room, there were SWAT teams, men and women in tactical gear with long guns, deployed inside our Capitol building. There in the rotunda, these brave men and women rested beneath paintings depicting the earliest scenes of our republic, including one painted in 1824 depicting George Washington resigning his commission, voluntarily relinquishing power, handing control of the Continental Army back to Congress. With this noble act, Washington set the indispensable example of the peaceful transfer of power, what President Reagan called nothing less than a miracle. The sacred obligation to defend this peaceful transfer of power has been honored by every American president, except one. As Americans, we all have a duty to ensure that what happened on January 6th never happens again, to set aside partisan battles, to stand together to perpetuate and preserve our great republic. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
As we provide answers to American people about January 6th, it's important that we remember exactly what took place. That this was no tourist visit to the Capitol, Most of the footage we are about to play has never been seen. The Select Committee obtained it as a part of our investigation. This isn't easy to watch. I want to warn everyone that this video includes violence and strong language. Without objection, I include in the record a video presentation of the violence of January 6th.
Proud of your boy! Proud of your boy! Proud of your boy!
Yeah, just for awareness, be advised, there's probably about 300 Proud Boys. They're marching eastbound in this 400 block of kind of Independence, actually on the mall towards the United States Capitol.
I am not allowed to say what's going to happen today because everyone's just going to have to watch for themselves. But it's going to happen. Something's going to happen.
Who's free? Our streets! Who's free? Our streets! Who's free? Our streets! We are on your side. Don't make us go against you. Understand the side. Pick a side. These are our streets.
20 bucks a picture.
I hope Mike is going to do the right thing. I hope so. I hope so. Because if Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election. All Vice President Pence has to do is send it back to the states to recertify. And we become president, and you are the happiest people. Mike Pence is going to have to come through for us. And if he doesn't, that will be a sad day for our country. Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
Cruiser 50, it does look like we're going to have an ad hoc march stepping off here. There's a crowd surge heading east.
We love Trump! 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 We love Trump!
Mike Pence, I hope you're going to stand up for the good of our Constitution and for the good of our country. And if you're not, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. I will tell you right now.
Get back, ladies! Get back, ladies!
#21 priority. We just had protest. Keep circle. Breach the line. We need backup.
Madam Speaker, the Vice President and the United States Senate.
We're going to give riot warning as soon as the apparatus here. We're going to give riot warning. We're going to try and get compliance, but this is now effectively a riot.
49 hours declaring it a riot.
5 to 50, be advised, Capitol Police 1 advised they're trying to breach and get into the Capitol.
Yeah, copy.
Hold the line! Hold the line! Hold the line! Hold the line! Back the line!
42. We're about 5 miles out. We're trying to make our way through all this. We have a breach of the Capitol. Breach of the Capitol to the upper level.
Be advised, they're requesting additional resources on the east side as they've broken into that window and they're trying to kick it in.
Without objection, the chair declares the House in recess pursuant to Clause 12B of Rule 1.
Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. U.S. demands the truth. Bring out Pence. Bring out Pence. Bring out Pence.
We can't hold this. We're gonna get too many fucking people. Look at this fucking bandit swing, man. We're fucked.
We need an area for the housing members. They're all walking over now through the tunnels. We're trying to hold the upper deck. We're trying to hold the upper deck now. We need to hold the doors of the Capitol. I need court support. We lost the line. We lost the line. All MPDs get back. All MPDs get back up to the upper deck. All MPDs get back to the upper deck. ASAP.
Cruiser 50, be advised that Capitol Police is going to start moving their resources inside. They're going to start the M4 officers first.
H208 with 4 members. The door's barricaded. There's people flooded the hallways outside. We have no way out.
In fact, officers still remaining on the House floor, on the third floor, to use the subways themselves. It's time to evacuate so we can secure the members on the other side. Copy.
It's up to us people now, the American people. What are you ready to do? One more time. What are you ready to do? And whatever it takes, I'll lay my life down if it takes. Absolutely. That's why we showed up today. Hey! Coming in if you don't bring her out! Fuck you! Pat myself on back. Get him up! He loves you! Get him up! Hold up! Get him up! Making stations under that West Carriage door for backup.
They were peaceful people. These were great people. The crowd was unbelievable. And I mentioned the word love, the love in the air. I've never seen anything like it.
Pursuant to the order of the committee of tonight, the chair declares the committee in recess for a period of approximately 10 minutes.
Wow. Just wow. I find it amazing how strong the wording has been so far.
Well,
Not
we
just from
yeah.
not just from the Democrats, but from Cheney as well.
I'm impressed. That was reasonable. That was not misinformation. That was facts. That was
Yeah.
truth. That was willing to lay it out there against your party. That's true independence. Do you know how long I've waited to see that quiz?
And
Thank you for
I
asking me
agree.
to do that.
I think what sorry, what Cheney is doing is trying to take the party back. Is trying to bring them back to, that side and say, we can't walk over that line. I mean, we have destroyed, they have destroyed everything they said that they were trying to uphold. And once all this gets out, there is no way people are going to just sit back and go, well, they're the party of law and order. Well, okay.
Yeah, well, let's just say you can't say you're the party of law and order and then toss it aside when you don't get your way. And I get that. And
Exactly.
here it is. We all make mistakes. Politicians make mistakes. Shit got done. Shit got in the chat, got said. But you know what? Own your crap. Own your bullshit. I'm not going to tolerate ignorance, and I'm not going to tolerate people getting attacked either. You got information, you got facts, fine, but don't come in here stomping about everybody's free rights. What about the right to breathe and not be terrorized? What about the right to have an opinion without being
Interesting
bullied?
is, how about the rights of everyone and not just those who voted for Donald Trump? How about the 85 million others who didn't vote for Donald Trump, who voted for Joe Biden? Are we supposed to just take them all and say, no, you were voting wrong, you voted for the wrong guy, and therefore we're not going to let you guys, have the president you chose? I guess everybody doesn't have rights.
Remember how close it was with Bush Cheney against Gore? And did you see Gore throw a fit and storm the White House because he did you see that happen?
No. Oh yeah, didn't you?
Yeah,
Oh.
did you see that?
I mean,
No, and that was close.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
that was
They had a peaceful.
Rotsky, you're still here.
They had a peaceful transition of power,
Mm-hmm.
and yet when Donald Trump decided that he didn't want to give up the office, it cemented in my mind that this man thought somehow thought that when he was elected president, it meant king.
Well, you know what? I told myself I wasn't going to ride that train, but I do get what you're saying. And I'm going to be reasonable. And I'm just going to say he's not exactly what I would call a fair loser.
He never has been.
Never has been. He's been a
But the
child in a tantrum.
shocking part is that this time, he didn't use the court system to go after what he wanted. He knew he wouldn't. I mean, let's not even talk about how we don't like William Barr, but let's say
What was that? Wait, was that reasonable? Look, at least that was the most lawyer I've heard him talk. Like that was an
I
attorney
mean,
general.
when
Like
William Barr
what? Wow.
tells Donald Trump, this is crazy, it won't work, you don't have a case, and yet Donald Trump continues to press the narrative that he wants to press, I don't see how people say he didn't instigate this. They showed the frickin' tweet up there that invited everybody to the Capitol, and not everybody, just those of those who weren't happy with the election. The rest of us, he didn't care about.
This is I get that, and we're a country that does do it this way. I mean, this is how we started, right? We started with revolution. We started with every time we have disorder, we get to fighting about it, and one side has to win or the other. But we usually move forward when one side wins or the other. You're supposed to move forward with it. But here's the thing. You can't say you want to be the president of the United States and then disrespect that office by doing what you did. You don't get to throw all the rules aside as if you're allowed to commit treason because you should be president. No, I'm sorry. There are laws against this, rules against this. You were the top of the chain, supposed to uphold it, but as soon as it doesn't go your way, and and all those people who support him, and I get it, I really saw a train wreck. I see the hopelessness and the frustration that you all felt. And he was like banging that gong like he was going to change everything and everything was going to be great. But tell me, what did he change? He had 4 years. I dare any of you to tell me what he changed besides
I think he walked us backwards.
I think besides make it worse for every single one of you. Are you any better? I don't see it. I don't feel it. I'm not like well off. And it isn't because of my politics. It's just because of how our country is. He didn't change a goddamn thing. He used your hopelessness, your frustration, your tired of fighting the system just to get ahead. He used all of that for his own personal gain. You're not looking at the man. There was no presidency there. There was no political machine. There was a man who wanted to be king, like we said. They said he did nothing for you. He has no respect for the people or his followers or anybody. He didn't hear a damn thing you said about what you wanted. He didn't lower anything.
We should compare this to Richard Nixon. Inasmuch that when Nixon was backed into a corner and knew he was totally hosed, he wasn't going to get out of it, he didn't start screaming and hollering. He didn't, gather the people in the Capitol and say, fight for me.
No,
he realized I'm screwed. And he walked away.
Okay.
I don't like the man. I do not like the man Nixon. But after what Trump did, I'm sorry, Nixon gets my respect for finally walking away.
Because he did. When he got caught with his pants down, what did he say? He went, whoops, sorry, I'm out of here. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. People do the wrong thing. I get it. I get it. Not everybody's right. And we're not going to agree. It's politics. And I get that. America's going to be divided. I get that. I give you your voice. What I don't give you is your ignorance. You don't come in here and say good because people got hurt or because laws got violated and and that was a riot. That was damage. We were watching people get put in danger, and y'all, I'm not going to tolerate celebrating
the desperation in those cops' voices too.
Yeah. So sorry, Troy. If you celebrate that bullshit, that's what I call ignorant, and that's what I won't tolerate. When you go and think that because we're taking something back and you're allowed to hurt people and step on people and do all this other kind of crap just because of your personal belief that you're unhappy, that's ignorant. That's not going to be tolerated by me. at all. And that is why you got timed out, not for anything else you said, just for the sheer ignorance of people getting hurt and you didn't give a damn. Like, sorry, my show, fuck off, period.
And if you're still there, Troy, I still want you to answer my question. You
no,
say
listen, I don't want to pick on him. I just want to say,
no. This is not picking on him, but he says he stands up for the people. So, are you
What
standing
people?
up only for the 75 million that voted for Trump, or are you going to support all the people who voted in that election and Trump lost by 10 million? So, exactly where do you stand on this now, Troy? Are you for the people or not? That'll be an interesting answer you can give me. And if you don't give it to me in the stream, then I'm going to come at you on Discord. I can promise you that.
Okay, well, don't threaten him live on YouTube. Now calm yourself down.
That's not a threat to come at somebody on Discord.
No, who knows in this climate? I'm just telling you. But anyway, thank you for thank you for encouraging me to have a voice about this. This actually does not feel bad to actually be able to say everybody can have their voice as long as you're respectful.
Right.
You know, and I don't really think when you lose that you get to use violence to try to win. Is that a win? When you got to use violence to win, when you got to beat a bully, like let's go down to middle school, because that's kind of something this reminds me of sometimes. You go to the middle school playground. If you got to beat a bully to get people to do what you want, are you in the right? Even when you win? Yeah, you got them to do what you do, but how good does that feel? Like, does that mean you had truth, you had honesty, you had the way it's supposed to be on your side? Nope. You had you're bigger and you're being a bully and you're just pushing your way through and you don't care what anybody thinks about anything. That's not winning.
I kind of am reminded of Hollywood and nighttime TV. You know, when we talk about this, because usually people don't go to this extreme to hold on to their offices. You know, they just don't. I mean, and we saw a man who desperately wanted to stay in office and therefore was going to do anything he could to do just that.
I want to thank our witnesses for being with us.
Let me turn it up again. I'll
to
mute.
share their
Here we go, everybody. Round two
of that terrible day. I know that some of the witnesses from our first hearing are in the room with us, along with some of the family members, friends, and widows of the officers who lost their lives as a result of the attack. Thank you all for being here for us and the American people. Officer Carolyn Edwards has been with the United States Capitol Police since 2017. On January 6th, Officer Edwards was assigned to the First Responder Unit, which serves as the first line of defense at the Capitol complex. She also served as a member of the Civil Disturbance Unit, a special subset of the Uniform Division trained to respond to mass demonstration events. Officer Edwards is a graduate of the University of Georgia and currently is working on a master's degree in intelligence analysis from Johns Hopkins University. Nick Quisted is an acclaimed filmmaker whose credits include documenting stories from war zones in Afghanistan, Syria, and Iraq. On January 6th, Mr. Quickstead was working on a documentary about, quote, why Americans are so divided when Americans have so much in common, end quote. During that day, Mr. Quested interviewed and documented movements of the people around the Capitol, including the first moments of the violence against the Capitol Police and the chaos that ensued. I will now swear in our witnesses. The witnesses will please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record reflect the witnesses answered in the affirmative. Without objection, the witness's statement will be included in the record. Pursuant to Section 5C8 of House Resolution 503, I recognize myself for questioning. As you saw just a few minutes ago, the Proud Boys instigated the first breach of the Capitol just before 1:00 p.m., where rioters pushed over barricades near the Peace Circle at the foot of the Capitol. Our two witnesses tonight were both there at the time of that first breach. Officer Edwards was standing with other officers behind a line of bike racks that marked the perimeter of the Capitol grounds. She bravely tried to prevent an angry crowd from advancing on the Capitol. Unfortunately, she was overrun and knocked unconscious as the crowd advanced on the Capitol. Mr. Quickstead was a few yards away from Officer Edwards, taking footage of the Proud Boys as part of his work on a documentary film. Most of his footage has never been shown publicly before we shared it this evening. Officer Edwards, I'd like to start by asking if you could tell us why you believe it's important for you to share your story this evening with the committee and the American public. Please, your microphone.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate it. And thank you to the committee for having me here to testify. I was called a lot of things on January 6, 2021 and the days thereafter. I was called Nancy Pelosi's dog, called incompetent, called a hero, and a villain. I was called a traitor to my country, my oath, and my Constitution. In actuality, I was none of those things. I was an American, standing face to face with other Americans, asking myself how many times, many times, how we had gotten here. I had been called names before, but never had my patriotism or duty been called into question. I, who got up every day, no matter how early the hour or how late I got in the night before, to put on my uniform and to protect America's symbol of democracy. I, who spent countless hours in the baking sun and freezing snow to make sure that America's elected officials were able to do their job. I, whose literal blood, sweat, and tears were shed that day defending the building that I spent countless holidays and weekends working in. I am the proud granddaughter of a Marine that fought in the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir in the Korean War. I think of my papa often in these days, how he was so young and thrown into a battle he never saw coming and answered the call at a great personal cost. How he lived the rest of his days with bullets and shrapnel in his legs, but never once complained about his sacrifice. I would like to think that he would be proud of me, proud of his granddaughter that stood her ground that day and continued fighting, even though she was wounded, like he did many years ago. I am my grandfather's granddaughter, proud to put on a uniform and serve my country. They dared to question my honor. They dared to question my loyalty. And they dared to question my duty. I'm a proud American, and I will gladly sacrifice everything to make sure that the America my grandfather defended is here for many years to come. Thank you.
Officer Edwards, your story and your service is important, and I thank you for being here tonight. Ms. Quickstead, I also like to ask you to introduce yourself. Can you tell us how you found yourself in Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021?
Good evening, Chair and Madam Vice Chair. Thank you for the introduction. As stated, in the winter of 2020, I was working on a documentary As part of that documentary, I filmed several rallies in Washington, D.C. on December the 11th and December the 12th. And I learned there would be a rally on the Mall on January 6th. So my 3 colleagues and I came down to document the rally. According to the permit of the event, there was going to be a rally at the Ellipse. We arrived at the Mall and observed a large contingent of Proud Boys marching towards the Capitol. We filmed them, and almost immediately I was separated from my colleagues. I documented the crowd turn from protesters to rioters to insurrectionists. I was surprised at the size of the group, the anger and the profanity. And for anyone who didn't understand how violent that event was, I saw it, I documented it, and I experienced it. I heard incredibly aggressive chanting, and I subsequently shared that footage with the authorities. I'm here today pursuant to a House subpoena. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Quested. The Select Committee has conducted extensive investigative work to understand what led the Proud Boys and other rioters to the Capitol on January 6th. We've obtained substantial evidence showing that the president's December 19th tweet calling his followers to Washington, D.C. on January 6th energized individuals from the Proud Boys and other extremist groups. I'd like to play a brief video highlighting some of this evidence.
My name is Marcus Childress, and I'm an investigative counsel for the Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol.
What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name.
supremacists and
Who would you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by.
After he made this comment, Enrique Tarrio, then chairman of the Proud Boys, said on Parler, "Standing by, sir." During our investigation, we learned that this comment during the presidential debate actually led to an increase in membership from the Proud Boys.
Would you say that Proud Boys numbers increased after the stand back, stand by comment?
Exponentially. I'd say tripled probably, with the potential for a lot more eventually.
And did you ever sell any stand back and stand by merchandise?
One of the vendors on my page actually beat me to it, but I wish I would have made a stand back, stand by shirt.
On December 19th, President Trump tweeted about the January 6th rally and told attendees, "Be there, we'll be wild." Many of the witnesses that we interviewed were inspired by the president's call and came to DC for January 6th. But the extremists, they took it a step further. They viewed this tweet as a call to arms. A day later, the Department of Justice describes how the Proud Boys created a chat called the Ministry of Self-Defense Leadership Chat. In this chat, the Proud Boys established a command structure in anticipation of coming back to DC on January 6th. The Department of Justice describes Mr. Tarrio coming into possession of a document called the 1776 Returns, which describes individuals occupying key buildings around the United States Capitol. The Oath Keepers are another group that the committee investigated.
You better get your ass to DC, folks, this Saturday.
Yeah, if you don't, there'll be no more republic. But we're not going to let that happen. It's not even an if. It's either President Trump is encouraged and bolstered and strengthened to do what he must do, or we wind up in a bloody fight. We all know that. The fight's coming.
The Oath Keepers began planning to block the peaceful transfer of power shortly after the November 3rd election. And according to the Department of Justice, Stuart Rhodes, the Oath Keepers leader, said to his followers that we were not going to get through this without a civil war. In response to the December 19th, 2020 tweet by President Trump, the Oath Keepers focused on January 6th in Washington, D.C. In response to the tweet, one member, the president of the Florida chapter, put on social media, "The president called us to the Capitol. He wants us to make it wild." The goal was for the Oath Keepers to be called to duty so that they could keep the president in power, although President Trump had just lost the election. The committee learned that the Oath Keepers set up quick reaction forces outside of the city in Virginia where they stored arms. The goal of these quick reaction forces was to be on standby just in case President Trump invoked the Insurrection Act.
Did the Oath Keepers ever provide weapons to members?
I'm going to decline to answer that and put them as grounds for due process grounds.
In footage obtained by the committee, we learned that on the night of January 5th, Enrique Tarrio and Stuart Rhodes met in a parking garage in Washington, D.C.
There's mutual respect there. I think we're
we're fighting the same fight, and I think that's what's important.
The committee learned that the Oath Keepers went into the Capitol through the east doors in 2 stack formations. The DOJ alleges that one of the stacks went into the Capitol looking for Speaker Pelosi, although they never found her. As the attack was unfolding, Mr. Tarrio took credit. In documents obtained by the Department of Justice, Mr. Tarrio said in an encrypted chat, "Make no mistake, and we did this." Later on that evening, Mr. Tarrio even posted a video which seemed to resemble him in front of the Capitol with a black cape, and the title of the video was Premonition. The evidence developed by the Select Committee and the Department of Justice highlights how each group participated on the attack on the Capitol on January 6th.
In fact, the investigation revealed that it was individuals associated with the Proud Boys who instigated the initial breach at the Peace Circle at 12:53 p.m.
Within 10 minutes, rioters had already filled the Lower West Plaza. By 2 o'clock, rioters had reached the doors on the West and the East plazas. And by 2:13, rioters had actually broken through the Senate wing door and gotten into the Capitol building. A series of breaches followed. At 2:25 p.m., rioters breached the east side doors to the rotunda. And then right after 2:40 p.m., rioters breached the east side doors near the Ways and Means room. Once the rioters infiltrated the Capitol, they moved through the crypt, the rotunda, the hallways leading to the House chambers, and even inside the Senate chambers.
Individuals associated with 2 violent extremist groups have been charged with seditious conspiracy in connection with the January 6th attack. One is the Oath Keepers. They are a group of armed anti-government extremists. The other group is the Proud Boys. They promote white supremacist beliefs and have engaged in violence with people they view as their political enemies. Members of both groups have already pled guilty to crimes associated with the January 6th attack. Mr. Quested, as part of the documentary you've been filming, you gained access to the Proud Boys and their leader, Enrique Tarrio. Your crew filmed them in Washington, D.C. on the evening of January 5th and then on January 6th. On January 5th, the night before the attack, you were with the head of the Proud Boys, Mr. Tarrio, in Washington, D.C. What happened?
We picked up Mr. Tarrio from jail. He'd been arrested for carrying some magazines, some extra capacity magazines, and he took responsibility for the burning of the Black Lives Matter flag that was stolen from the church on December the 12th. We were attempting to get an interview with Mr. Tarrio. We had no idea of any of the events that were going to subsequently happen. We drove him to pick up his bags from the property department of the police, which is just south of the mall. We picked up his bags and went to get some other bags from the Phoenix Hotel, where we encountered Mr. Stuart Rhodes from the Oath Keepers. By the time I'd gone to park the car, my colleague was saying, who'd got into the car with Mr. Tarrio, that they had moved to a location around the corner, the parking garage of the Hall of Legends, I believe. And so we quickly drove over there. We drove down into the parking garage and filmed the scene of Mr. Tarrio and Mr. Rhodes and certain other individuals in that garage. We then continued to follow Mr. Tarrio. There was some discussion about where he was going to go. He ended up going towards a hotel in Baltimore, and we conducted an interview with him in the hotel room. And then we returned to DC for that night. And what was interesting that night actually was that was the first indication that DC was much more busy than it had been any other time we'd been here, because we couldn't get into the hotels we wanted to, and we ended up at a hotel that, you know, was not as satisfactory as we would hoped.
Thank you. So what you're saying is you filmed the meeting between Mr. Tarrio and Oath Keepers leader Stuart Rose, right?
Indeed.
You couldn't hear what was said, but according to the Justice Department indictment of Mr. Tarrio, a participant referenced the Capitol. Now, on the morning of January 6th, you learned the Proud Boys would gather near the rally scheduled to take place near the White House. What time did you meet up with the Proud Boys, and what was happening when they met?
We met up with the Proud Boys somewhere around 10:30 a.m. and they were starting to walk down the mall easterly direction towards the Capitol. There was a large contingent, more than I had expected, and I was confused to a certain extent why we were walking away from the president's speech, because that's what I felt we were there to cover.
So at 10:30 a.m., that's early in the day. That's even before President Trump had started speaking. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
So how many Proud Boys would you estimate were marching together to the Capitol?
A couple of hundred, potentially. Yeah, I'd say a couple of hundred Proud Boys were marching towards the Capitol at that point.
At the time, was the area heavily guarded?
No, that was, I remember we walked we walked down the mall, we walked to the right of the reflecting pool, and then north along the road that leads to the Peace Circle. And as we were walking past the Peace Circle, I framed the Proud Boys to the right of my shot with the Capitol behind, and we see one sole police officer at the barriers, which subsequently breached. We then walk up and past a tactical unit preparing, and you see that in the film where the man questions their duty and their honor, and you see maybe a dozen Capitol Police putting on their riot gear.
So how would you describe the atmosphere at that time?
The atmosphere it seemed to be much darker. I make efforts to create a familiarity between myself and my subjects to make them feel comfortable. And the atmosphere was much darker this day than had been in these other days. And there was also a contingent of Proud Boys that I hadn't met before from Arizona who appeared to wear these orange hats and had orange armbands.
So when the Proud Boys went back down the hill to the Peace Circle, did a larger crowd start together?
Well, no, first of all, we went round to the back and down the steps, and we took some photographs on the east side of the Capitol, and then we went for lunch. We went for tacos.
So, Mr. Quested, you're a journalist, so you are careful to stick to things that you have observed. But what you've told us is highly relevant. Let me highlight a few key facts that you and others have provided the committee. First, there was a large group of Proud Boys present at the Capitol. We know that from multiple sources. You now estimate that there were around 250 to 300 individuals that you've testified. They weren't there for President Trump's speech. We know this because they left that area to march toward the Capitol before the speech began. They walked around the Capitol that morning. I'm concerned this allowed them to see what defenses were in place and where weaknesses might be. And they decided to launch their attack at the Peace Circle, which is the front door of the Capitol complex. It's the first security perimeter that those marching from the ellipse would have to come to as they move toward the Capitol. The Peace Circle walkway was always where the thousands of angry Trump supporters would arrive after President Trump sent them from the lips. The Proud Boys timed their attack to the moments before the start of the joint session in the Capitol, which is also where President Trump directed the angry mob, quote, "We fight like hell," end quote. He told them before sending them down Pennsylvania Avenue, right to where the Proud Boys gathered and where you were filming. Now, a central question is whether the attack on the Capitol was coordinated and planned. What you witnessed is what a coordinated and planned effort would look like. It was the culmination of a months-long effort spearheaded by President Trump. Mr. Quested, thank you for your eyewitness account of the lead up to the breach of the Peace Circle. This brings us to a point in time where you and Officer Edwards were in close proximity. At this point, I reserve the balance of my time pursuant to 5C, Section 8 of House Resolution 503. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Wyoming, Ms. Cheney, for questioning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Officer Edwards, I want to start by thanking you for your service and thank you for your courage. Thank you for being here this evening. I know that it's not easy to relive what happened for you and for the officers behind you and for the family members of officers in the audience this evening. But it's really important for the country to have a full accounting and understand what happened. I want to start, Officer Edwards, with a short clip that shows the horrible moment when you were injured as the Peace Circle was breached. Officer Edwards, can you describe the crowd that had assembled at the Peace Circle as you and your fellow officers stood behind and guarded the bike racks at the Peace Circle?
Yes, so there were about, I want to say about 5 of us on that line. And there was our bike rack, and then at the bottom of the Pennsylvania Avenue walkway, or right by Peace Circle, there was another bike rack. And so the crowd had kind of gathered there. It was the crowd led by Joseph Biggs, and they were mostly in civilian clothes. There were some who had military fatigues on. We could see people with bulletproof vests on, things like that. They didn't seem, extremely cohesive, but they had gathered there in their outfits, but they had gathered there together. And Joseph Biggs started, he had a megaphone, and he started talking about, first it was things kind of relating to Congress. And then the tables started turning once the, what is now the Arizona group is what you said, the crowd with orange hats, they came up chanting F-U-C-K, Antifa, and they joined that group. And once they joined that group, Joseph Biggs' rhetoric turned to the Capitol Police. He started asking us questions like, you didn't miss a paycheck during the pandemic. mentioning stuff about our pay scale was mentioned, and started turning the tables on us. And I've worked, I can conservatively say probably hundreds of civil disturbance events. I know when I'm being turned into a villain, and that's when I turned to my sergeant and I stated the understatement of the century. I said, Sarge, I think we're gonna need a few more people down here. And so after that, I think they started conferring. They went a little silent. They started conferring among each other. I saw the person now identified as Ryan Samsel. He put his arm around Joseph Biggs, and they were talking, and then they started approaching the first barricade. They ripped the first barricade down, and they approached our bike racks. At that time, we started holding on, grabbing the bike racks. There weren't many of us, so I grabbed the middle between two different bike racks. And, I wasn't under any pretense that I could hold it for very long, but I just wanted to, make sure that we could get more people down and get our CDU units time to answer the call. So we started grappling over the bike racks. I felt the bike rack come on top of my head, and I was pushed backwards, and my foot caught the stair behind me, and my chin hit the handrail, and then at that point I had blacked out, but the back of my head clipped the concrete stairs behind me.
And you were knocked unconscious, is that right, Officer Edwards?
Yes, ma'am.
But then when you regained consciousness, even with the injuries, you returned to duty, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. At that time, adrenaline kicked in. I ran towards the West Front, and I tried to hold the line at the Senate steps at the Lower West Terrace. More people kept coming at us. It just seemed like, more and more people started, coming onto the West Front. They started overpowering us. And that was right about when MPD's officers showed up. Their bike officers pushed the crowd back and allowed our CDU units as well as theirs to form that line that you see, that very thin line between us and the protesters or the rioters, at that time. I fell behind that line, and for a while I started decontaminating people who had gotten sprayed and treating people medically who needed it.
And then you were injured again there on the West Terrace, is that right, Officer Edwards?
Yes, ma'am. So after a while, I got back on the line. It was on the house side of the Lower West Terrace. And I was holding that line for a while. There weren't many of us over there. And Officer Sicknick was behind me for most of the time, for about 30 to 45 minutes that I was down there. We were just, as the best we could, we were just, grappling over bike racks and trying to hold them as quick as possible. All of a sudden, I see movement to the left of me, and I turned, and it was Officer Sicknick with his head in his hands. And he was ghostly pale, which I figured at that point that he had been sprayed, and I was concerned. My, cop alarm bells went off, because if you get sprayed with pepper spray, you're going to turn red. He turned just about as pale as this sheet of paper. And so I looked back to see what had hit him, what had happened, and that's when I got sprayed in the eyes as well. I was taken to be decontaminated by another officer, but we didn't get the chance because we were then tear gassed.
And we are going to play just a brief clip of that moment that you've just described, Officer Edwards. Officer Edwards, I just want to thank you for being here. And I know, again, how difficult it is. I know the family of Officer Sicknick as well. Who's here tonight. And one of the things one of the Capitol Police officers said to me recently was to ask me whether or not, as members of Congress, all of us understood that on that day, on January 6th, when we were evacuated from the chamber, were led to a safe, undisclosed location, whether we knew that so many of you had rushed out of the building and into the fight. And I can assure you that we do know that, and that we understand how important your service is. Thank you for your continued work with our committee and the interviews, and thank you very much for both of you for being here this evening. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you very much. Ms. Edwards, can you give us one memory of that awful day that stands out most vividly in your mind?
I can. That time when I talked about falling behind MPD's line, I remember because I had been kind of shielded away because I was holding those stairs. So I wasn't able to really see what was going on over here. When I fell behind that line and I saw, I can just remember my breath catching in my throat because what I saw was just a war scene. It was something like I'd seen out of the movies. I couldn't believe my eyes. There were officers on the ground, you know, they were bleeding, they were throwing up, they were, you know, they had, I mean, I saw friends with blood all over their faces. I was slipping in people's blood. You know, I was catching people as they fell. You know, it was carnage. It was chaos. I can't even describe what I saw. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that as a police officer, as a law enforcement officer, I would find myself in the middle of a battle. You know, I'm trained to detain, you know, a couple of subjects and handle, you know, handle a crowd, but I'm not combat trained. And that day, it was just hours of hand-to-hand combat, hours of dealing with things that were way beyond any law enforcement officer has ever trained for. And I just remember that moment of stepping behind the line and just seeing the absolute war zone that the West Front had become.
Let me thank you for your service and obviously your bravery that you have told the world about tonight. It's unfortunate that you had to defend the Capitol from fellow Americans. None of us would ever think that that would have to happen, but it did. So let me thank our witnesses for joining us tonight and sharing their experiences with America. Throughout my chairmanship of this committee, I've continuously vowed that this committee will ensure a comprehensive account of the heroic acts on January 6th, and that we will follow the facts wherever they lead. Your testimony is an essential part of that record and helps us do our job. Mr. Quested, thank you for sharing your footage and your account of the day's events with us. The images you recorded and have shared with the committee do a better job than any of our words in reinforcing the violence of January 6th. We hope that the power of your footage help encourage all Americans to consider how citizens with so much in common could viciously brawl at the seat of their democratic government. Officer Edwards, thank you for your brave service, as I indicated, on January 6th, and all you did to protect us, and most importantly, our democracy. If you and your fellow officers hadn't held the line against those violent insurrectionists, we can only imagine the disaster that would have ensued. Your heroism in the face of danger is admirable, and your will to continue to protect and serve despite your serious injuries should be an inspiration to all of us. We wish you a continued recovery and look forward to seeing you back in uniform sometime soon. The members of the Select Committee may have additional questions for tonight's witnesses, and we ask that you respond expeditiously in writing to those questions. Without objections, members will be permitted 10 business days to submit statements for the record, including opening remarks and additional questions for the witnesses. The witnesses have just told us what they heard the rioters saying while they stormed the Capitol on that day. Now we're going to hear it from the rioters themselves. Without objection, I include in the record a video presentation.
What really made me want to come was the fact that, you know, I had supported Trump all that time. I did believe, you know, that the election was being stolen, and Trump asked us to come.
He personally asked for us to come to DC that day. And I thought, for everything he's done for us, if this is the only thing he's going to ask of me, I'll do it.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
Did you recall President Trump mentioning going to the Capitol during his speech?
Oh, yeah. So that's one of my disappointments. He said he was going to go and go with us, that he was going to be there.
I know why I was there, and that's because he called me there and he laid out what is happening in our government. He laid it out.
But I remember Donald Trump telling people to be there, right? I mean, to support.
So you mentioned that the president asked you. Do you remember a specific message?
Basically, yeah, he asked for us to come to DC, that big things are gonna happen.
What got me interested, he said, I have something very important to say on January 6th or something like that. Is what got me interested to be there.
You know, Trump has only asked me for two things. He asked me for my vote, and he asked me to come on January 6th.
When the committee reconvenes next week, We're going to examine the lies that convinced those men and others to storm the Capitol, to try to stop the transfer of power. We're going to take a close look at the first part of Trump's attack on the rule of law, when he hit the fuse that ultimately resulted in the violence of January 6th. Without objection, and with that, the committee stands adjourned.
Well,
Wow.
wow. I lowered my mic. Hopefully, I'm not blasting anybody in the chat. Let me know if it's too loud. I had it up for the stream. Was that respectfully done or what? I mean, it's been a
I was
while
shocked.
since I've
I
seen
was
a
shocked.
committee act like a reasonable and just lay it all out and talk calmly.
Exactly.
And I haven't seen, I mean, we've seen committees, right, Quiz? I mean, gosh, it's
Oh,
been
God.
years and nothing but goddamn committees. And that was so respectfully done. I'm going to stop the stream. We're going to talk about it for a little while. I did, Quiz, as you saw, I moved fuckery to tomorrow, everybody. I'm sorry, but
saw that. But,
you know, Quiz and I were talking about this, and this seemed really, really important. And you know what? I'm damn glad we did it, and we'll be
I
doing
am
it on
too.
the 13th. We're going.
I'll tell you
You
what,
want to join me on the 13th?
I
Yeah,
will be
Quiz.
there. I will be there ahead of time. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is a
And
hot button topic for me because
mm-hmm.
he not only attempted to overturn our election, he attempted to just toss out our Constitution. He attempted to become king.
Yep.
If he would have stayed in power, I can promise you he would not have gone out of power after this next term. He
Yeah.
would have found another reason, another way to hold on to his power. That's what he wanted. This man is not doing us any favors.
No, he's not. And I'm going to do something brave. For those of you who listen to this with us, you got something to say, I just dropped the link. If you want to come up and talk to us, cool. Or you can talk in the chat and we'll talk with you. Oh, and by the way, that link is for everybody but Troy. Don't you dare fucking grab that link. And I will kick you hard.
Go ahead.
Okay?
Go ahead, Troy. I dare you.
No. I had one fuck to give and he used it. That's done. I'm gone. Like, that's it. You disrespected people like police officers who give their lives. That was it. Like, I don't care what your politics are. You don't disparage people who are actually trying to do good in their jobs, and they got to put
I'm
up
going
a
to
bullshit
say
like that.
on Troy's behalf, because I know he does a lot of joking around, and I know he does it because,
Well,
you know,
you
people. But
listen.
hold on. Let me finish.
Hmm.
Troy spent 20 years in the military.
Okay.
He spent 4 of those years overseas in action. He was shot.
Okay.
He's paid his dues. He has. I get it. But I also say that's no reason to come into a stream and say nothing happened when they're showing a video of the violence that did happen on
That's
January
it.
6th. You cannot say it both ways.
Okay, and listen, and I will listen. I'm not going to stay mad forever, Troy. I'm a very forgiving person. I'm just saying, right now, I got no patience for it, so don't try me. That's all. You're entitled to your opinion, but it ain't going to work after that. After I felt like they were being disrespected, I can't go there. I can't listen past that point. So, you know, nobody in the chat attack him or anything. Like, he's allowed to have his opinion as long as he's being respectful. But,
It's interesting what Liam's just said.
Yeah,
Trump
because
actually used the fact that the Constitution is worded against tyranny and made his follower believe he was being tyrannized.
as he acted like the tyrant. Okay, like
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
this is what really perplexes me about this. This was totally organized because there is a way to like do what everybody's afraid of and get them. Like he used fear. He used everyone's frustration. You know, America is divided and frustrated, and we were so hopeless at the time. I mean, everybody was working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. And he's using all of that against everybody, but not to help make a change. I mean, I'm waiting for you to show me where that change was. You know, wave that flag all you want, people. You can't call yourself a patriarch when you're not working for the greater good. When you're being a selfish, entitled asshole, You are not working for the greater good, and you are not a true patriot, because patriot is for the country, and the country is a lot of people.
Well,
A lot of people.
One thing is, I think even before, well, maybe Nixon would fill in this hole too. But one thing Trump did was he took care of his people and himself and his family during his 4 years. He didn't give a rat's ass about the rest of us. He didn't. Whatever he could do to make more money for himself, that's what he did. And let's not forget, Trump was one of the first presidents to not put down his money when he entered the office, to not step away from his businesses. He continued as the CEO, as the COB and everything else. He didn't put all those things away.
He was pretty good. He also dismantled the oversight committee and everybody else that could do the checks and balances on everything. He dismantled every single. He got rid of so many people in the IRS. He got rid of so many people in the FBI, the CIA, everywhere, and then he just forgot to replace them. He dismantled them.
Not only that, but let's not forget about the environmental impacts this man attempted to do.
157 acts in the first 100 days that he.
I mean, in Alaska, he tried to get oil digging going again.
Yeah,
and it was only because there were freaking squirrels or whatever else that were, imperished or whatever you call it, about to go extinct, and environmental groups are like, no.
Well, here's the thing, and we could probably go on, the two of us, like for the rest of the night and into tomorrow and probably all weekend, if we're going to talk about everything that we were against that he did in those 4 years. But it's more than that. Right now,
he was the president, and when he was doing it, we weren't charging the Capitol, busting down a fucking door, yelling that we should hang him either.
No, I'm telling you, everything, so much was done to dismantle everything, and then complain about how it ended up. You see, that's what's really heartbreaking to me, because somebody that comes in here and says they were like a Trump supporter, like they're automatically going to get slammed, and I feel bad about that. They should be allowed to have their opinion. If but like, tell me what he did good. What did he do? Okay, because you're coming at me in my chat and everything about gas prices. I know they're so high, but you're not going to tell me that those 4 years they weren't too, that they didn't go up and down like a yo-yo, and I couldn't afford to heat my house because, like, I was there, I lived through it, like I know.
Gas prices are not set by your president, though. Come on, they're not even close to being set by your president. Let me help you understand another one. Your property tax are a state fucking problem, not a national fucking problem.
Exactly. And explain to me why gas prices being so high and us not being able to afford it. I understand it. That's a terrible thing, because, commerce slows down. Everything does. We can't deliver product, food supply. Everything comes to a halt when gas prices go through the roof. I get it. But that gives you the right to put other people at harm, to turn everything upside down when you don't even have a plan on how it should be replaced and done better. So instead of telling us how to do it right, you're going to burn it all to the ground. That just makes you ignorant. And that is why you got timed out, because that I won't support attacking that facility with those innocent people in there because you're pissed off about your gas prices. You know what? Go do something else about it. How about write the plan that'll change it? Take it to your damn representatives that you voted in and make them do something about it instead of fucking doing a riot and hurting people. What good is that?
And
what
this
good
is the thing.
You're like a 12-year-old throwing a fit.
Yeah.
All you're gonna get is sent to your room. Okay.
This is the thing Americans forget all about. During the election, we have the power.
I know.
I'm from grade school. We have the power to change those who represent us. If we don't think they're doing a good job, fuck them and throw them out, put somebody else in. Stop voting tickets.
Yep.
Don't walk into a booth and press Democrat or press Republican. Stop doing that shit. I mean, because there are bad Democrats and there are bad Republicans. So just stop it.
Exactly. And
Go in knowing who should be voted into office, who you want to vote for, and all this. This is why we got to this point. This is how we screwed ourselves, because it comes down to the
Yes.
American voters. We put him in office.
We did. And I'll agree, do lie. I think it's do lie, right? I will agree that yes, small businesses, middle-sized businesses, and even the extremely large businesses got a great tax break. They did, because it was believed that that would help the economy and that was done, purposely to try to help the economy, but it didn't. It did help you, and I agree, and you deserved it because small business was suffering terribly, but it didn't work. It didn't do what they said it was going to do, okay, because other areas suffered greatly because of it, and the economy, actually, everything went down, okay. I hear what you're saying, and I'll give them that. That was a move. They did try that, okay. That was something I couldn't even go against, because I watched small business suffer. I watched middle business suffer under the rules and regulations of being overly regulated. And I'm not going to say that,
But let's
I
be
understand.
honest, when they give the big companies and the big CEOs these tax breaks, that's bullshit.
That's right. It's
Tax
like,
everyone
yeah.
fairly, for God's sake.
Exactly. You would hope so. I would like to go to that, and there is a big movement towards that on both sides, actually. Just
I
for
haven't
people that
understood this since I learned about this shit in high school. I haven't understood why we just don't tax everybody a certain percentage, and by everybody, I mean everyone, as including the companies. Why can't we just say, okay, everybody pay 10% and just leave it at that? Why does it have to be so fucking complicated?
You want to know why? Because we let the people that benefit the most write the rules and regulations.
Exactly. And that's why we should pay more attention to who we elect. And if they fuck up, we should throw them out and elect other people and get it changed.
Because
But I've
remember
already
when
said
it
that,
used
so
to,
I'm sorry.
remember, I don't know, like, I remember being told by older people in my family that there was a time when you ran for office, you couldn't have big business, this and that, and other thing, like with you. You had to be for service. There used to be a thing in the United States called doing it for service. I know that's a bad word. You're all going to come at me, but that used to be the way it was. And at that point, then they had to make all of these committees, like, the oversight committee and everything. And they were there to make sure that while you were in service to the government, you weren't making a profit off what you were doing for the government. Okay. But that all got dismantled when people weren't able to make a profit off it. When you weren't able to do, like, buying and selling of trades, or lobbyists weren't able to send you on trips and pay money for you and all of this. We've made some changes, but not enough. Lobbyists have done a great damage to our country. Private industry lobbying against our politicians to be for them instead of the people has done a good. And also, our representatives saying they're for the people and then getting in there and representing big business instead has been a detriment to our company, our country, and we all see it, and we all know it. Well, how to change it, what to do, and you got to do it by voting. And unfortunately, you vote for the best candidate you possibly can, and it's still not good enough. And then they
Yeah,
don't do
I mean,
what they say.
let's be honest. Most of the time, a presidential vote is choosing between the lesser of two evils. I mean, it has been for a while.
Look at the 8 years of Obama. Okay, like, that was a man with no scandals. Okay, nothing like that. He tried. He did a lot as he could, but they just stalwalled everything through the process with him because they didn't want him to be president because they lost. And they just said, well, we own the House and the Senate. Like, forget it. Like, we're not putting anything through. And I actually think there should be legislation. I know this is going to sound crazy, but, I am crazy. I do wear rose-colored glasses. I want the world a certain way. I want my representatives to do their job. And I want people like the House of Representatives, when Mitch McConnell won't put a bill on the floor, I want him to pay a penalty. I want him out. I want 27 laws or whatever. I want the agenda touched. If people are putting shit forward, put it forward, not just because it doesn't fit what you want to do. Like, that's not what you're there for, dude. That's why you're there for your party, but that's not how you're there for the people.
Exactly.
That's not the job. Okay. That's not the job. The job is not there to represent your party to the best of your ability.
To represent everybody in your state, not just those who voted for you.
Right. Both parties, all the people. But you got to remember that, you biased son of a you know what. But anyway,
So
besides
what
that,
surprised me about
you should
tonight.
not get me. You should not get me talking about politics. I
What
don't do well.
surprised me about tonight was they actually had two hard witnesses, and I mean
They did it. They gave some
amazing witnesses to start out with.
Mhm.
And they had the video. Oh my God! I tell you what, when they were showing the video of Officer Edwards holding the line, holding those two railings with her elbows, and I dare say when most men probably would have just let go and backed away,
I'm
and
gonna
she sacrificed herself for that. I mean, that was shocking to me that they showed it. It just shows everybody that this wasn't just a walk on the mall. It wasn't. This was a violent act against our government. And those people who keep saying, "Oh, it has nothing to do with that. They were just there, to protest." As I said earlier, Vietnam War protests were protests. The Million Man March was a protest.
Was a protest.
What happened on January 6th was not a protest.
It was a
It
tantrum.
was an insurrection, an
It was
act
an
of
insurrection.
sedition, and they
It's
are
treason.
traitors to our nation, and they should not get just 36 months in jail or 24 months in jail. They should be in jail for life.
I'm sorry.
Because if it was in the 1800s, I can promise you what they would have done to them after it was over. They
I'm
would have
telling
hung
you,
them or they would have
yep.
shot them.
I know what he did was treason against the people and against the office. It was treason against the office of the presidency.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's what it was.
I am gonna, I wish that they would
want-
do they would do these hearings not weekly but nightly until they're done.
Well, you do know you can watch them. Like I don't want anybody out there to think you cannot watch these things that go on every day.
Oh
All
no.
of the different ones.
But these hearings.
Oh no, not these. They're just doing them as
Yeah.
you know what? I want them to keep people's attention. I'm glad they're not running it every night.
Oh, I would
am.
love it to be run every night. I would think
No,
that would show
no,
people it's
'cause
important
I
enough
want it
that you
to
need to
be-
pay attention to these.
It was. Look how well they did it. Look how well they did it. Give them time to
Exactly.
do it that well again next week. I want to see just as
Yeah.
much of a calm, well presented facts, just calmly spoken from both sides. I want to see a Democrat and a Republican, just like tonight, speaking truth, telling their story, bringing witnesses forward, getting the story out there, showing the video clips of other Republicans and other Democrats who knew what was going on, talking about it. That was so well presented. And if they need a week to do it, please, I'm giving it to them,
Hey,
but I'll be there. I'll be there on the 13th.
I'll be there on the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish we didn't have to wait so long. That's my point.
I know. Well, in the meantime, let's answer some of the other statements in the chat, like this one from Charlie that said,
Yeah.
if everyone paid their fair amount of taxes, healthcare would be taken care of easily. You're right. If
Not only
everybody
health
did,
care,
but
but just
a
about
lot of
everything we want
Mhm.
to support as a nation would just be wiped off the board. I mean, they would have the money for it. We wouldn't have to, cut here, cut there, and say, "Oh gosh, we don't have enough for mental health, so let's cut $211 million," and then
But that's
blame
just it.
a
But
mass
if it-
shooter for mental health problems.
if we had the money, we would do it, because we do often try to help those in the hardest places. But what we should be doing is making a status quo for every American, like basic rights. That are covered, and then deal with it. It would be so much easier.
Don't even
And
get me
to do
started,
that,
because if you start talking to me about that, they're going to find out that I'm really left at that point. And I say universal basic income.
can I be universal like that and still be in the middle? Because I'm going to call myself a true independent. I have been a Democrat.
I'm an
most of my
independent.
life,
I'm an
but
independent, but I believe that we should
Mhm.
have universal basic income.
Because I'm a godless granny. I'm joining the church of Liz Cheney today. Man.
I'm telling you right now, and I told this to
facts, man.
I told this to Claire when she started her first round of speaking. She will eventually run for president.
Yeah, we do it. We were in the private chat, like voting for Liz Cheney already. I was like, well, I will tell you what I said. I said she's well spoken enough, she's vanilla enough, and she's got the Republican Party. She would be the first woman president, more than likely. Yes, she will. Because they're not going to go for Kamala. It's just the truth. Our country's not ready. Look what they did to Obama. They're going to eviscerate her. And not because she's not any good at it. Just
No.
because
Just because she's a woman.
Just because she's a woman and she's
well, hold on. Just because she's a strong woman.
Yes.
Let's put it that way. That's what scares everyone.
Yeah, but so is Liz Cheney. You know, she's
yeah, but Liz Cheney's a Republican strong woman.
I know. But anyway, Aaron's point on this. But let's not be voting for the president. Let's just see how it goes for a couple of years. Let's get through this hearing, okay?
Yeah, let's get through these hearings. I would
go
like
ahead.
to know if tonight, for everybody in the chat, if tonight's presentations made any difference on how you viewed what happened on January 6th.
That's a good question. Maybe I should poll it while we talk about Aaron's thing here. It's the write-offs and the tax breaks that benefit corporations. They pay a percentage minus all the breaks. Yup.
Yeah.
They
I
don't
think
pay enough.
we realize that, especially when a certain president only paid $750 in taxes. But yeah, I mean, you know, you got Apple, you got Coca-Cola, you got Intel, you got Microsoft, you got all these, you got Google and all these huge companies in our country that are basically paying as minimal amount as they can. All because they want a few extra $1 billion.
Okay, I'm going to put a poll up for you all. I'm so happy to be a real YouTuber. I can run polls now. It's the little things, Quiz. It's the little things.
It's little things that make you happy.
It is. Do you know how happy I was when I got a community tab at 500? Like I had a party. I'm like so corny. I know, but yeah.
No, it's not corny. You worked hard for it.
I do work hard, don't I? Although I feel like I've been slacking off a little bit lately. But yes, please vote, people. But you know what? Most of you seem to really enjoy the coverage. And someone from the UK asked me to keep covering it for them. There is this clause that I have to check out about restreaming the live presentation. Like I'm allowed to live presentate it, but I don't know about restreaming. I got to check
As long
that
as
out.
you don't commercialize it, it's okay.
I did not monetize it, so you guys won't see any ads. What I'm going to do is I am going to keep doing it, and I'm going to make a playlist, and I'm going to make the playlist unlisted, and I'm going to offer it to whoever wants it. I just don't want to get in any trouble with YouTube because I like my channel and what I do.
I don't think you will. I really don't.
You think
I think if you would have gotten in trouble,
Yeah?
I think if you were going to get in trouble, it would have been well before 2
Yeah, but
hours
here's-
and 30 minutes.
Well, I did check with a couple of people who have been in YouTube at least 2 years or more, well longer than me, and they're respected people, and I admire their opinions. And they told me that as long as I was streaming from the government site because it's public asset, there's access, and it's not monetized, that they can't. That's it. Like that, I'm an American.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to do that.
And remember,
we
government.
No, I will not. When it comes to these streams, something this important, I'll never monetize it. I'm an idiot. I know. People
No.
think I got my
You
pie in
shouldn't
the skies,
monetize it.
and
I
I'm
don't
not
think
going to
this needs to be.
monetize it. It doesn't. And I'll not talk while they're speaking either. So if you wanted me to give more commentary or whatever, you're going to have to wait for the breaks or before and after, because I think it's
agree.
more important to hear it all together. But what I love is that we were all here together, and that there were people from different countries here too, and could see that, you know, as I know y'all think we're young and stupid, and most of the time I admit it. I agree with you all from other countries when you say you Americans are so young and stupid. I admit it. We are. Don't, like, we're not learning fast enough. We're not. You know why? Because we're arrogant too. We won't take the advice from countries that have been through it and model ourselves after the things that work. Because, you know, we got to find our way. But that's how arrogant teenagers are. And I think that's where we are in our growth right now. Oh, thank you, Autistic
Just got a
Shield.
super chat.
You did not have to do that, love, but I truly appreciate it. Believe me, I do. That is absolutely wonderful of you. I know it's not going to be much, but here's for tonight's stream. Thank you very much.
Canadian
Autistic.
5.
Just so you know, anybody who does that, YouTube money is going towards headphones, microphones, and for several different YouTubers who
go.
need them. I'm not when I'm not, even when we're monetized right now on YouTube, that money is all going to other creators and not myself right now. My Patreon money will be donated to whoever the Patreons decide. It's kind of low right now. I'm going to wait till probably the 3rd month, so it's enough to give away, but I'll show it all to you then. Believe me, I want to do good with whatever I make on YouTube. I'm going to be, that annoying asshole. Yeah, I am. And I'm not going to lie about it either. I am going to be that annoying asshole. I came out here day one as a hobby. It still kind of is. I might need equipment. Oh, but the coffee fund, I'm clear about that. The coffee fund that I'm running, I've been running that for a couple of months. That's clearly going to equipment for me. And I have designated it as so, just so you know, like I'm being honest, Oh, thank you, Sandy.
Boy, I guess I could never get on a YouTube, or I could never have a YouTube channel.
Well, and I'm not saying that anybody that makes money on it is doing anything wrong. They can do whatever they want, I'm just going to do what I
saying that
want.
if it was my YouTube channel and people started tossing money at me and asked me where I was spending on it, of course it'd be sex toys.
Look at you all. We're not buying sex toys, Sweetie. It doesn't go in a research fund. I don't care what Quiz said. That's a lie. I am not putting it in a research fund for sex toys. I don't care, because everybody knows I buy my own sex toys and do my own research for Mayhem. Y'all know that. I don't need your money to do that. Anyway, Sandy, thank you. Good idea. Liam. Holy shit.
Wow,
Wait a
Liam.
minute. You got super chats now? Cool. Yes, I do. I am an official YouTuber now, Liam. I will have you know that you all over there in Ranty's chat, you all did that for me. Liam, you coming over here and subbing, and Dulai and Joe Black and all of you who came over from there and subbed to me, you pushed me over the edge and made me official. And I am very, very grateful for it. Very grateful for it. I'm so grateful.
And I thought I was the one that pushed her over the edge, but I guess not.
You did. No, you do. Let me just put this out there. Quiz edges me regularly. How you like that?
Well, if I'm going to be known for anything, I think I'd rather be known for edging people.
I'm pretty good at that, aren't I, Quiz? I got you.
Yeah, you did. You did.
I did.
But you enjoy it so much.
I know I am. I'm so proud of myself right now.
No, I meant the edging.
Yes, Professor. Hey, Icarus, that was good to see you. Icarus, was that not fun doing philosophy games? Who knew there were philosophy games? Like, my mind was blown.
I had to stop because of the stream coming up.
No, I got to tell you, I got kind of insulted because I'm playing the philosophy game and I'm winning, right? And it goes, oh, look, you're better than the average.
How do you win a philosophy game?
By not getting what it was. The point is to stay the way you were thinking about something.
Consistent morality.
Consistent morality. Apparently, the Bears got consistent morality because I was very much underneath the average. And do you know that damn game told me, oh, that's got to be a fluke, right?
Oh, hey, it told me I was consistently under the average, but I kind of was like, yeah, but some of your questions are pretty leading. So.
It was. Oh, I didn't know. I saved the link, Icarus. I'm going to be playing that in our Discord because it was fun. I was just sad they invited me to go up, but I didn't have time. I only had an hour and I didn't want, their streams usually run so long and I didn't want to run out on them. But I would love to do that again with Joe and Dave. It was a blast. And y'all were fun in the chat too. And now I could share it with the Discord. But for all of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it was like a link to a philosophy game site where you had to say what you believed about certain things. And, they do the typical situation where there's 5 guys on the train track and you're heading towards them and you're going to kill them. Do you turn off the track and kill just one guy off on the side, or do you go straight ahead and kill the 5? Either way, you're killing somebody and you're supposed to decide. So it was pretty difficult, but
yeah, it was fun. And it is fun.
Really
I'm going to continue it. I got through, the first 3, I think, and was told I'm consistently moral, or I'm consistent in my own moral views, and I'm also consistent in my consent views.
I got scared.
So y'all can suck it when you think that I'm not. I don't have consent views.
I think you do. I think you do have consistent views about things. But what scared me is that I was like veining off what Joe was saying. Like I was going against Joe, and I figured, oh man, I'm gonna get called like a devil or something. Nope, I won. Like I had the best score. Like Joe was getting a little
What was
rough.
your tension quotient?
It was below average. That's what I'm telling you, and that's what I posted in the group.
What
That they
was
that I
your
was.
tension quotient?
It was non-existent. It didn't even
Oh,
register.
wow.
Yeah, it didn't even read. Yeah, Bear's morality is very consistent. My moral fortitude is a rock. Yeah,
I like Liam.
Take that, Twitter. Take that, Twitter.
Liam says I would clone the trolley and kill them all.
Oh God, Liam. Ooh, I see a red bar in your future, Liam.
Liam. I don't know if we've talked about the trolley problem, but my reaction to it was this: that because I'm a survivalist and a realist, so I come across the 2 train tracks. I see 5 people tied to one. I see one person tied to the other, and I look at them and go, "Well, how do I know that they're not murderers?"
No, and then they did the
So
one
I'm
where
going to run over the 5, so I only have 1 to deal with.
Yeah, but then they did the one about the surgeon and with saving all the lives, but he has to kill somebody to do it, and like that was like they did that one.
I didn't get into that one
It was tough. It was really tough, and then they did it well. If you're going to go there with it being okay to not, if you don't want to actually murder somebody, but it's okay to let people die. Well, then how do you feel if the guy that you're going to like try to avoid killing that heavyset guy, if the train hits him, it'll automatically save the other guys? Like, how do you feel about that? And I'm like, what? Like, come on, like, get out of here with this stuff.
I was kind of I was really having to think hard on those sexual morality questions, though.
No, it was.
I don't know if you read those yet about consent, about when to give consent and all that.
Aaron's like, just kill them all. Aaron's like, yeah, just kill them all. Go get the 5, then get the 1. Like, don't leave anybody out. Like, just get them all. Damn, Aaron. But we're gonna play this. That's gonna be one of the next time we play games. It's gonna be quip. It's gonna be what is it? Quips. What is that game I like? Yeah, Quiplash, and then it's going to be philosophy.
There we go. I'll figure it out. I'll figure out how we can stream it. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. But anyway, I guess we should end this. I'm sorry we didn't do fuckery. I am sorry we didn't do fuckery, but now we know they're only going to be 2 hours wrong. I thought it was going to go later, so I actually moved it already. But we will do fuckery perhaps tomorrow night if Quiz is available and if Jared is available.
I am available.
We will do that. It'll be after pub chat. It'll still be the same time at 10 o'clock. It'll be something to do on a Friday night. If you want something to do, people come hang out,
Yeah, because sex is so boring.
Wait, I got the option to have sex instead of doing a YouTube show? No.
I don't know why. Why wouldn't you?
What? Wait a minute. Whoa. Well, now you know how sad my life is because there ain't nobody here to do that. Or I could guarantee, given the option, y'all would see me a hell of a lot less.
There you go.
Yeah, why should the train? Oh my God, I'm on a bridge. I have to.
Joe Black, I love you.
You guys are awful. Oh my God, you guys are so weird. Oh my God, this is so. The morality is consistent. Yeah, well, morality consistently bad. You know what, Professor Icarus? I love that. Wait, were you a doctor last week? Would you graduate again? What's going on, Icarus? Like, wow, I just noticed that. The morality is consistent too. Consistently, if your morality was consistently bad, as long as it stayed consistent, it didn't matter. You scored low. So I don't know if I've got good morality or bad morality.
There is no such thing as good morality or bad morality. It's your morality.
Mm-hmm.
How it's viewed changes from society to society. So you can't say something is good or bad based on just these answers.
Oh, I like this answer. Oh, Icarus, could you come? You want to come Saturday and do a show with me and teach people this? We'll do an educational show. I got a job at YouTube University. Now I'm a professor because I teach bullshittery. I like it. I like it a lot. Oh, can I bring a whole... Oh, God, God, Liam. Oh, Liam, you know,
Yeah, thanks.
I mean, they're just off at everybody in the chat.
I think
man.
we
They're just
better
off
end
at
this before we
everybody.
start getting demonetized at
We
this point.
did. I think well, we weren't monetized anyway, so it doesn't
Oh, well,
really
there
matter.
you
But
go.
I am going to end it before they kill everybody in the chat. Thank you all. I'm glad. I know. Artistic Shell. If I'm playing philosophy games, I want to do them while I'm smoking. Okay.
Ooh,
There you go.
yes, definitely.
I was gonna let you. I'll tell you later. Well,
All right. So anyway,
I got my first delivery of gummies in. I've never had a gummy before.
Gummy.
I know.
Gummy.
And I held back, and I didn't have one for this show. Like I didn't do it, but I don't know.
Well, you know, we could. I'm gonna throw this out since my night is free because someone's already in bed asleep and there's
do
no
games?
messing around. If you want to do a game night, I can kind of go over to Discord and we can do a game night. But that's just if you guys want to.
All right. Well, all of you who know where the Discord is, if you know how to get there, if you've got your ticket, we're going to do games. Okay. Icarus. Icarus, you had a wrench at one time. You should be in my Discord. Do you Discord send me your ID, dude? Because then we'll get you in there.
Money.
But anybody else, if you join even as a murder minion, which is like really reasonable, you get into that Discord and we do play games, weird games. What was the other one? We play murder games.
Murder mystery game.
We played murder mystery. We played Quiplash.
Drawful. Quiplash.
Oh, but we're terrible at that game. That game is funny as hell.
It's
none of
fun
us can draw.
because nobody can draw.
None of us can draw. I remember that you had a wrench at one time, Icarus. I must have. I don't know what was going on. It might have been the sea of blue that or something. But if you want in that Discord, just let me know, dude. If we're in any Discords together, hit me up. If or on Twitter or on Instagram or whatever. We don't play hide the sausage, Aaron. Because
some of us would like to, though.
No, we don't play hide the sausage. We know Aaron's walking around with his sausage all over that Discord, all over. It's not hidden at all. Nobody hides the sausage.
Boy, I wish.
I'm sorry, Aaron. I just had to. I just had to. I know Sandy, but I do know this one. I know Icarus.
Well, so.
Well, I guess we're out of here. Let me play it. Yes. Let's say goodnight. Okay, I'm going to play my brand new thank you to my members and my Patreons, my members on YouTube and my Patreons. Okay, and that it was done by Counter Talk, who actually is stepping up my video game. And I can't take any credit for it because I didn't do it. They're teaching me, but like they did the work. It's all them. So I'm going to put that on. And our awesome, let's just play the fuckery out. Although that was a very nice hearing, I still feel like playing the fuckery outro because
I agree.
Let's dance our ways out.
We are talking about fuckery.
Because we are talking about fuckery for sure. So on that, Quiz, thanks for the support.
Hey,
and
anytime.
for hanging out with me.
Yep.
And for those of you, if you're interested in joining on any of these political discussions, and also I do have library chats still. And so for those of you that have an issue that you would like to talk about one-on-one, that you want to give information out or you want to speak on something, I do those one-on-one talks. You saw that I did one with Charlie and Aaron, and we did it on men. Discussing the Amber Heard thing, and I also do them with Bearded Heretic when we talk about psychology issues, because I do like to talk about psychology too. But you don't have to be a law professor or a doctor or a psychologist to do these.
And she's going to do one with me.
I am? What are we talking
Yeah,
about?
we're going to be discussing about the cutest boys in K-pop.
No, we're not doing that on library
Oh,
chat.
come
No,
on.
we do that on Mayhem and we do it in Discord every day, like every freaking day. Like if you know Quiz, you know I'm telling the truth. We do it every day. Okay, no, you don't get an hour. You don't get an hour on my channel to do that. No,
I
no.
could
Sorry.
post some real nice pictures of
I'm
pretty
sorry.
boys.
And I'm gonna have to stick to my guns too, because I just said it
You
out
could
here
have
on
John
YouTube.
and I.
No, we're not talking about that for an hour in library.
Alright.
No, because we already talk about it in Discord, and we could talk about it on Mayhem anytime you want. You know that, okay?
I know, I was kidding you, boy.
Oh, which way do you throw the switch? Liam, I'm not going to go against my members and my Patreons. Okay, that's it. All right, we're out. Anyway, do the YouTubey things. Like, share the video.
everybody.
Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to tweet my stuff out if you see it. Like all of that stuff. And if
And
you'd like
certainly
to
don't
become a
forget to
member.
join us next week.
And that's right. It'll be on the 13th, and I will be promoting it ahead of time as soon as I get the time and date. And I'm going to put it out there and reserve the time. So there you go. I will see you all tomorrow for fuckery or in the Discord later. Bye. Say goodbye, Quiz.
Goodbye, Quiz.
Say, bye, Quiz. Oh, Jesus.
Oh my God. Did you hear about the...
No, but did you see that?
I'm not saying anything about the...
Oh, yo, let's just call it what it is. Fuckery.
Oh my God.
Ain't no motherfucker in this world can do it like me. Open up your eyes and insert a little rising. You don't have to love me, you don't have to like me. Got enough love in myself, in my psyche. You should have the same in your brain nightly. If you wanna taste, bitch, you can fucking try me. If you wanna hate, bitch, you know where to find me. And if you go and hate this, you can fucking bite me.
I'll be cruising in my lane fast, call it high speed. I've been working hard, yeah, I've been working nightly. If you think you'll win, ha, not fucking likely. I be taking shots, yeah, cold-blooded, icy. Watching numbers grow is what I call sightseeing. In the front row, run it up when they hype me. The following grows, they know how to ignite me. Call me CEO, I've been running shit right, see.
No, but did you see that?
Playing games, I create my own lane, making pleasure out of pain, turning losses into gains. I'm the boss, I'm making change. I've been rocking this exchange, fuck. Popping off and risking things, gonna make a fucking name. I just wanna be famous, but I don't want that cheap fame. No, I'm not that vain. I just wanna be greatness.
Oh, yo, let's just call it what it is. Fuckery.
Ain't no motherfucker in this world can do it like me. Open up your eyes and insert a little rising. You don't have to love me, you don't have to like me. Got enough love in myself, in my psyche. You should have the same in your brain nightly. If you wanna taste, bitch, you can fucking try me. If you wanna hate, bitch, you know where to find me. And if you go and hate, bitch, you can fucking bite me.
Okay, I'm going off every chance I get. I don't really take a loss, well, I'll admit. That's why I'll make it to the top, yeah, I commit. And no, I'm never getting lost, I get after it. Investing in my own stock, cause it's faster than any crypto hits go, let me spend. Everything that you see is something I invent, and it's only a percent. I'm gonna take shots, if I miss all, forget it. I'll take a fat loss just to learn all that's in it. I'm taking snapshots, learning how to fall and get it. I'm getting back up, always stand tall, don't sweat it. I never back up, I don't miss a thing or regret it. I'm always learning, you could call me academic. I'm always working, never been apathetic. Bad energy is like a poison, needs some antiseptic.
No, but did you see that? But
I'm not saying anything about the.
Oh, yo, let's just call it what it is. Fuckery.